Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon. Whatever it is for you, I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 631. And joining me is Austin. Austin, how are you, man?
I'm well, man. How are you?
I'm okay. Our audio's weird. I can only hear you in one ear. Who knows why? It's a bizarre setup today. We're obviously in the same room I always record in every episode. Um, But life's good, man. How are you? Like, tell me about your day. Tell me about life.
It's good, man. Coming off the heels of a fun Super Bowl, coming to grips with the idea that football season's over now. It's always bittersweet post Super Bowl. You get a chance to like have a fun time at a game, but it all came crashing down, and now we're done for the next uh, 7 months or something. So
So
bring on baseball, 162 all summer.
fuck that. Well, so first of all, we can cuss now on the show, which I'm really excited about.
Okay,
And
great.
no more Sundays, but football is not like football is going to be. It's going to carry us through
This is a
the
good point.
offseason. Like
Yes, this is a good point.
quarterbacks, the draft, the free agency moves. Like it's going to be a very busy, really fun. I want to acknowledge this, by the way, for the audience. Like Austin's on the show today because he was like, we should talk about the Super Bowl, but like, when do we do it? What's the plan? And we do another podcast together. And I was like, just come on, because I'm one man by myself. And I was afraid, how am I going to talk about one game for an entire hour? Like I got to fill a lot of time. And I'm like, hey, the best way to do it is to have Austin on the show with me to bounce ideas back and forth off of. And I think you uniquely represent like the fan perspective, which I really like. You've got a different perspective that you bring to the show today, which I think is really cool and going to be really fun. So,
Yeah,
welcome to the
looking
show, and
forward
that
to it.
explains
Thank
why
you.
you're here.
Thank you. This is my third appearance, I believe, on Strong Opinion Sports. So the hat trick here. Haven't done it in a little while. Uh, haven't done it talking football ever. We talked hockey, but that's not why we're here today. So
It's funny you said hat trick because hat trick is a hockey term, and you've been
yeah,
my hockey guy for years. But what people don't know about you're actually one of my offensive linemen in high school. So like you
yeah,
do know the game of football, and we have an intimate relationship because you literally protected me from getting murdered while playing
by
football.
10th
So
graders or something. Yeah,
hey
yeah.
man, I'm still here partially because of you. Like let's
Several years
acknowledge.
through middle school and high school. There was
Oh
several.
yeah, dude.
There were several years there. Yeah,
Dude, now I'm going
absolutely.
to your wedding. Like it's gonna be
It's
like
craziness.
we're bros, man. It's fun.
Yeah.
Um, you reached out to me. You said you had a lot of stuff you wanted to talk about at the Super Bowl. I think the way to introduce it, first of all, say it was. You said it was Super Bowl 58, which I'm a degenerate and had to ask you before recording. I'm like, what
I
number Super
wasn't
Bowl
gonna
was
out
this? Because
that.
I can't read Roman numerals. There's no way for me. Like I can't do that.
The worst part about it is that at least for me, I mean, worst is a lot. I when you're when you're like googling the Super Bowl or like talking about the Super Bowl or you know what, especially if it's years down the road, this is the Super Bowl that happened in 2024, but it is not obviously representative of the 2024 football season. So that's where I get the overlap issues. It's like, which one are we talking about? I'm always a year ahead or behind. It seems like when I'm talking about a Super Bowl because the year thing throws me off.
Oh, dude, I totally I hate that. You look up who won the Super Bowl in 2024, and Google doesn't even really know how to answer that question. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, the game happened in 2024, but this is the year of 2023. So you're right. It's never clear.
It's always a year
Um,
ahead. It doesn't work.
and we had an overtime Super Bowl. Kansas City beat the 49ers. Did you enjoy the game? Like I had a blast watching it, but how did you feel as a fan watching the game?
Uh, yeah, it was a good game. It ended well. I mean, obviously overtime, like it's hard to have a bad overtime game. We've only had two of them, and they were both, I mean, barn burners in their own right. Although they started very differently. I thought this one, frankly, started a little bit slow. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
that's great. Like the halftime score was 10-3, I believe. So it's not crazy to say this thing started a little bit slow, but it definitely had its moments at the end, and then you get overtime, and that's the cherry on top. So
I kept saying I was watching my dad and stepmom and lady friend, and we were the four of us were all watching, and I was like, it doesn't feel like it went by so fast. Like the game, it was like bang 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 bang. It's suddenly halftime. I'm like I feel like the game hasn't even started and it was already halftime. It was very jarring and weird.
I think
Um,
that's why. I think because it felt like there were moments even in the first half where and you know you're a few plays away from that score being different, but I think the score is part of it. It just felt like the game kind of lacked pace. Like both offenses felt like they were kind of in mud for a while,
hmm.
and then Usher's on stage. It's like, what happened? So I'm completely with you.
Did you like Usher? I was not. into it at all. Like nothing against Usher. I just it's not a great halftime show at
I
all.
thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. I didn't have anything against it. It wasn't my favorite ever. It feels like the halftimes get faster and faster, and they don't. Like it's always 13 minutes. Like that's what it's
Yeah.
been for a long time. I actually went back and watched Prince's halftime in 2007 because that's like an awesome performance, and it was 13 minutes. And it's like it feel like the halftime shows, and maybe it's just like weird adult brain, but I feel like when I was a kid, halftime shows were like a half hour long, and they definitely weren't because
Mm.
halftimes aren't whatever. But uh, I thought it was fine. It was a mid tier halftime show. Nothing against Usher.
Yeah, I mean, can we not get anyone better? Is that fucked up to say? Like we can't do better than like Usher?
Well, for this makes a lot of sense. The whole Vegas thing. He has a residency in Vegas. It's either starting or started. I don't know. So that is going to contribute. The fact that this was in Vegas, he's in Vegas. Like I think it was promotionally. I think it made a lot of sense for him, and made a lot of sense for whoever's letting him do a residency. I think for ticket sales. So I think that I'm sure that means something. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
It was
there's other
fine.
acts
Like
I would prefer, but it was fine.
yeah,
I think.
yeah. Like it will never get Prince again. Like I feel like you know what I mean? We'll never get like someone
Well,
truly at
no,
the
we
top of their
won't get
game.
Prince again.
Well, yeah, for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, for a
Well,
few
one
reasons.
very important one is that
I think a requisite is being alive
I think
to
so. I
perform
think you
at
had
the
to be
Super
alive to do
Bowl.
the Super Bowl halftime show,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah,
just maybe preference.
yeah.
Where do you want to start today? Like, where do you want to talk about first regarding the Super Bowl? I feel like there's a lot of things we could talk about, but I want to let you kind of open. Like, what's the thing that sticks in your craw the most when you look back on the Super Bowl? What's the sticking point that you can't get past, or maybe like you're really hung up
It
on?
it's missed opportunities for me. Like I think you can have a broader conversation about like you can do the ESPN style like what does this game mean for XYZ in terms of like legacy or like what's it, but like I think as far as the game itself, like what happened between the sidelines, uh it's a game of missed opportunities on both sides, I think. And obviously one team is going to walk away feeling a lot more spurned by that than the other. But up and down, I think that like there were a lot of ways that game could have gone like super, super differently with just a few things going a different way. You got both teams fumbling deep in positive territory. You have a muff fumble, um, a really weird like Mahomes interception. Uh, it just felt like back and forth. I don't want to say it was necessarily like a sloppy game because I don't think it was that, but I don't think either team played anywhere near like the degree at which they can. And obviously, the Niners are going to walk away feeling like they could have and should have won that game, and rightfully so. Because I don't think they're
Mhm.
wrong in that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to give credit to we say missed opportunities. There were missed opportunities on offense. I
That's
thought
true.
both
That's very
defenses were
true.
opportunistic and really like made some plays. Like that
That's
fumble
fair.
on the
Yeah.
goal line within the 10-yard line, right? Where Kansas City
Yeah.
drives down the field, they're threatening to score, and the ball gets knocked out. Isaiah Pacheco fumbles. You're like, whoa, like that's a huge play in this game. That if they lose the game, Isaiah Pacheco's famous for losing Taylor Swift to Super Bowl. Like I I remember thinking like if they lose
Mm-hmm.
this game, Isaiah Pacheco's name is going to be everywhere for all the wrong reasons.
And that play immediately follows what I believe is the biggest scrimmage play of the game in terms of yardage.
Yeah.
It immediately takes the wind out of the sails of KC. The people I was watching with, it's like, okay, yep, this is how the game turns. This is a big KC momentum play, and then the very next play, it's completely snuffed out.
I want to say one thing. So there was a play that I is very memorable to me that would have been a tough play to make succeed, where Brock Purdy got hit as he throws, but he had a guy open in the end zone. It could have been a touchdown, and it wasn't. And I think that play and the fact they didn't win is a play. People are always going to look back and go, "Oh, Brock Purdy! It's Brock Purdy's fault. There's a reason they didn't win."
Is that the 3rd and 4 from the 11 where he's
Yes,
hit as he throws it? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and they're thrown to the right side of the end zone.
Yeah, and he
I
has
I
got
don't
Ayuk
know that
open.
it's fair to blame Brock Purdy for this loss, like at all. I think he played about as well as you expect him to play. He wasn't amazing, but he wasn't awful. He was Brock Purdy, and given how bad he was, I think, against the Packers, and then in the next playoff game against the Lions, I thought this was his best playoff game of their Super Bowl run, actually. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you feel like
I
he was a problem? I don't personally.
see. I'm not the pro. The Brock Purdy discourse has gotten out of control. Um, if it and it's because it's not fun, especially if you're like online anonymously like razzing someone. Are you good?
No, keep going. I'm gonna
Okay.
close the vent. It's like it's killing
It's
me.
it's difficult to be okay with saying a guy is okay. As I'm watching Zach close event here, I'm going to try to fill some time here.
HVAC guy closed the vent. Look at me. All right, we're back.
It's kind of boring to say that a guy's okay. Like it's no one like sits around at the bar and is like, I think this guy's the 14th best quarterback in the NFL. So naturally, like there's a gravitation toward either this guy sucks or this guy's elite. I don't think he's either. I've had a lot of arguments with a lot of 49ers fans who get mad at me for thinking he's not like a top 7 guy in the league. He played like a guy who's an average quarterback, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's built to succeed, or the system is built to succeed with him in it the way that he plays. I think that he did as much as he could, like you said. There were definitely plays he could have made that he didn't, and I think that he, on the other hand, made a lot of really great plays. So no, I don't think I'd put it on him, although in like the meta of it all, if someone wants to say they put it on him because he's just not the kind of guy that can win you these games, then like, okay, sure. But like in terms of like what actually happened for 60 minutes on Sunday, no, it's hard to put like an inordinate amount on him, I think.
Yeah, there are 2 throws I can think of where he just missed. He had that touchdown
Yeah.
that could have been a touchdown. It would have been a tough play though, getting hit as he throws. And then he had a throw early on in the game. He just missed someone open. But he was 23 for 38 passing at 255 yards, a touchdown, and no turnovers, which is important to me. Like he didn't turn over the football. He wasn't awful. He was Brock Purdy. He was exactly like you said. He was the 14th or 15th best quarterback in the NFL. He's not bad. He's not amazing. And if you expect him to play like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, you're expecting the wrong thing. That's not who he is. It's never been who he is. He's a guy who wins because of the people around him and does a good job. And he controls the things he can control really well. And I thought it really was sad after the game. He gave a quote basically, for lack of a better term, saying like, it's on me. I got to be better. And he said all the right stuff, like what a quarterback is supposed to say when you lose the Super Bowl. But I just didn't feel like this was his fault. I'm like, like you did your best, kid, and your best is what we saw. And I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and you make a good point. Like he's not built to play like these like top of
he's an average athlete with an average arm. Like he wins with good decision making and help.
His longest completion in air yards, I think, was 21 yards. Like he's not pushing the ball really, and that's the way that they do things. And again, it's like if you're grading him on the curve of existing within a system and then existing kind of within a broader like ecosystem of NFL quarterbacks, I think he played again like you'd expect. Is that enough? Yes, it is enough. If a game goes to overtime, you mostly played well enough to win. Yeah. He played well enough to win by nature of the fact that the game ended the way that it did. But that's all it was.
So this is important too. I got to say, you brought it up, but like, I don't think the 49ers losing the way they lost is actually like, I don't want honorable is the right word there, but it's like, they didn't lose a horrible way. They lost a game to the best quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life, to a dynasty, great coach, amazing quarterback in overtime. Like you took Kansas City to overtime. I don't think it's like a terrible loss. I think that's what sucks about this Super Bowl is everyone's going to come out as everyone does, right? Brock Purdy's awful. Patrick Mahomes, the greatest of all time. It's going to be super polarizing. Kyle Shanahan's a terrible coach. You're going to see all these really crazy headlines. And the reality is about this Super Bowl to me, it's like, no, it's a very like, they lost and it sucks, but I don't feel any crazy emotion, any direction. And I don't think that's because I'm neutral. I think it's just, that's the story. I don't think the story is some crazy Brock Purdy sucks and the 49ers blew it. It's like, no, they lost a game in overtime to the greatest quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life, putting together a great drive. Does that make sense? It's just kind of like, I don't have a,
generally,
I know that's boring. That sucks. We want a crazy story, but I don't think there is one here.
I think the biggest, if I need to oblige the rabid listenership, I think that the biggest loser of the game is probably Shanahan, just because like this is the third one. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator in the 28-3 game. You have 21 points in 6.5 minutes. The first time these two teams met in the Super Bowl to result in a loss, and you've got this one where you're in control for the first half and a few things go the wrong way and you've lost this game too. So if you want to find someone to pick on, it's probably Shanahan, because it seems like he keeps finding himself on the wrong side of games that you really think you probably should at least have one of at this point, if not if not two of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think a game like this, when it's so tight and the margins are so thin, like it
Hmm.
does come down to coaching. But also let's go through it. Like in 2019, they lost the Super Bowl. In 2021 and 2022, the 49ers, coached by Kyle Shanahan, lost the NFC title game to get into the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then here a year later, they lose in the Super Bowl. So in 5 years, they've gone to the NFC title twice and two Super Bowls. That's not a bad coach. Like, I don't care who
No,
you
it's
are.
not. He's not a
The
bad coach.
Cowboys would kill to have that. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, almost every other fan base in the NFL would be like, if you, it sucks we lost to those, but we'll take that level of success, right? I mean, that's not bad.
No, it's not. And I think that, I mean, there's obviously going to be like the people that will say that he's just like outwardly a bad coach, but he's not a bad coach. I saw someone call him the Doc Rivers of the NFL, and for non-basketball people, Doc Rivers in his career has blown, I think, 4-3-1 postseason leads,
Ooh,
and it's like this is
ooh.
brutal. And that might not be the most like analogous comparison ever, but it's the idea that this is a guy who's like repeatedly been good enough to put you in positions to win big games, and just there's not finish there. But I,
Yeah.
again, like you said, like I, as a resident Cowboys fan, yeah, like of course you take that. So anybody calling him a bad coach, I think, is overreacting.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, I do think that, especially in the third quarter, they abandoned the run a little bit. Like
They
I
did.
felt like that's the maybe, and it's what's funny is it's the same criticism it's been for a long time with Kyle Shanahan when they blew that 28-3 lead when he was offensive coordinator at Atlanta. The
Yep.
huge sticking point was they didn't run the ball in the second half, and I
Mm-hmm.
really felt like in the third quarter of this game they got away from what they do best, which is running the football. And it's I feel like they wasted the entire third quarter on offense with a couple possessions where they did nothing because they didn't do what they do best on first and second down, which is run the football.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And I mean, so Christian McCaffrey averages 3.5 a carry this game, and it's like you think that that sounds really low, and it is for him. Like that's not a number that you are used to seeing from him. And credit the Chiefs front for committing to like containing the run on the early downs, because I think that was like a really like a cornerstone kind of uh, piece of their philosophy headed to this game. But like if you're setting yourself up for like third and inside five, that's not the worst thing ever, especially if you're being able to if you're able to do that like on the positive side of the field. The Niners went 3 of 12 on third downs. Like that's the recipe to not win a game, and that's the recipe to give a lead away, even if it wasn't a gigantic lead. I agree with you. I think that the run was really successful early on, and they slowly just backed away from it more and more. And again, credit the Chiefs because they didn't. I mean, McCaffrey's longest run was 11 yards, so they didn't allow like the chunk plays in that way that he usually manages to break off. But I agree. I thought they abandoned that when they shouldn't have.
It's really important to say. So Kyle Shanahan's getting a lot of like attack, getting a lot of hate this week,
Yeah,
and you know it's Tuesday right now. I I think like context matters when you criticize somebody. And Kyle Shanahan's lost two Super Bowls as a 49ers head coach, two NFC title games, but his quarterbacks have been Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, I guess, a little bit. Like, I, I don't know, man. Like, he's never had a game changing quarterback, in my opinion.
is Brock Purdy not just like cheap, less handsome Jimmy Garoppolo?
That's exactly what he
Like
is.
that's kind of this is what he is, right?
He might be better in high pressure moments. I get the sense. Like, I think Brock Purdy handles stress better, maybe for lack of a better term. So he's
Sure.
maybe a
Okay.
slight upgrade, but he's not a big upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. He's like maybe less injury prone Jimmy Garoppolo and cheaper
Yeah,
for
and that's
sure.
fine.
But
And younger, so I mean
he's
that's
along
yeah,
the same. He's in the same category you would put Jimmy Garoppolo in, where he's got an
exactly.
average arm, not a great athlete. He wins with making good decisions and having good teammates around him. Like he needs help to win, and I just think it's a shame we've never seen. And it's almost the Trey Lance thing is really sad because I think Trey Lance had so much potential that clearly didn't work out.
Yep.
Um, we've never seen Kyle Shanahan with a top 10 quarterback on the 49ers as the 49ers head coach. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, what would he do with like a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen or Justin Herbert? And maybe what's going to happen, because I see a lot of comparisons today between Andy Reid and Shanahan early, where Andy Reid lost a lot of Super Bowls in big games early on in his career. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until he got Mahomes that he started winning Super Bowls and having a high level of success. Maybe that's what it's going to take is Shanahan's going to have to leave the 49ers or go find a different quarterback. And we all acknowledge when Shanahan gets his hands on one of these really special, incredibly gifted quarterbacks, it's over. The same way it is with Andy Reid and Patrick
I wonder
Mahomes.
though, like I wonder how much of this is designed. Like I mean, so this is now 2 Super Bowl appearances that Shanahan's made as a head coach with again Jimmy Garoppolo and now Brock Purdy. It's like is part of this, and this is like positing into the void. So I don't know, but like
Sure, sure, sure.
is part of Shanahan's kind of idealistic way of team building is that like does he think that between his own offensive capabilities and then the way that they can build a team, do you think that like he's not trying to kind of buck the trend, or I guess rather not even buck the trend of it's bucking the trend of having an elite quarterback to try to win the Super Bowl, but you're using a cheap quarterback, which is the trend. Is he okay with just like taking a less than guy who's cheaper and
No,
provides more cap flexibility? Like, I don't
no,
know.
no. So I'm glad you asked that because we now know Brock Purdy's talked about this openly. After last year, when they lose in the NFC title game to
Yeah.
Philadelphia, Brock Purdy was told by John Lynch, the 49ers GM, and Kyle Shanahan, hey, we're going to try to bring in Tom Brady. Like, we are going to
Yeah.
do everything we can to make Tom Brady our quarterback next year. And if he's here, sorry, Brock, we love you, but you're the backup. And Brock Purdy understood. Okay, fine. I'll
Mm-hmm.
come do the best I can. I'll learn from Tom Brady. They knew they tried to upgrade a quarterback. And
Yeah.
when Kyle Shanahan gets criticized, you can say, well, he doesn't, whatever you want to say. How about we actually celebrate the fact that he took Jimmy fucking Garoppolo to a Super Bowl, to multiple
Yeah.
NFC title games, that he took Brock Purdy now to an NFC title game and a Super Bowl. He took the last pick of the draft to the fucking Super Bowl. Like when you look at it that way, it's all about perspective. And I think that's the perspective you got to take. Is he's an amazing coach who's won with so little at quarterback. And can you imagine? Can you imagine if he had a truly great one? The same thing that happened with Andy Reid. When Andy Reid gets a truly special quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, it's over. And if we ever get Kyle Shanahan paired up with a really special quarterback, it's going to be totally different. And
I wonder what the team looks like at that point. And granted, again, this is all we
yeah,
won't know, but like you can do the position group thing for KC, you know, against San Francisco. San Francisco has the better position groups up
yes,
and down. I think they have a better front. They have on defense. I think that Casey's got a better secondary, and obviously Casey has the better quarterback. But outside of that, like I don't know where Casey's truly better. So it's like, so if you're bringing in a quarterback that is one of those kind of tier 1 guys, which I believe you, and that I think that would be ideal for him. It's like where would Shanahan prefer to like trim fat? I wonder on his depth chart to get a guy like that. I wonder what that looks like, and we won't know until we know, and until the situation presents itself and allows us to know. But there's so many resources tied up in having such an amazing roster that has lifted whatever, you know, imperfections Purdy has. And it's not to put it all on the roster. Purdy's again done well in the position that he's been asked to, you know, to be in. I don't know. It's curious. I wonder what that looks like.
Well, the problem that's going to happen is when Brock Purdy wants to get paid, and we got to have that conversation at some point of like,
Soon.
what do you pay him? And he's not eligible this year for a new contract because he was
No, yeah.
drafted. But I wouldn't pay Brock Purdy a lot of money. Like that part of why he works is because he's cheap. That's the advantage of him.
That's a huge part of why he
And when you lose
works.
that advantage, then what are you doing? Like then what's the point? It's like buying a hybrid that gets terrible gas mileage. It's like, well, you bought this low powered car to get 63 miles a gallon, but you're getting 12. So why do you even have a Prius? Does that make sense? Like
Exactly. No, 100%. And
I
that's
rented a Prius in Hawaii and it was crazy, the gas mileage, but that's why you have it. It's not that much better. Like I prefer driving my truck. I like being up higher. I like being safer. I like carrying more stuff, but the Prius gets good gas mileage. And if you don't have that advantage, what's the point? Brock Purdy's a
it's
Prius.
it's a serious question, and in this case, there's 31 other people that want to rent a car. Right? I mean, not every team literally. There are going to be other teams that are happy with where they're at quarterback wise, but there are a lot of teams that aren't. So you've got this open market situation here. I don't know. I'm very curious. Purdy's he's up. He'll be up after next season, correct? He's 4 years because he's got drafted, but he doesn't have the fifth year. So I I'm very curious. I wonder the Niners brass probably isn't thinking as hard about that now as they will be in the coming months slash year. Obviously, next season will have a lot to do with that. I'm sure. But if he has another season like this, they lose in the NFC title game. I'm very curious how those conversations go.
What's scary, like again, I can't get past this comparison: Andy Reid to Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches who were, to me, clearly like amazing coaches that underperformed early in their career, lost a lot of big games. So Philadelphia runs a lot of people out of town. Philadelphia ran Andy Reid out of town, who's an incredible coach. When is the moment where the 49ers and San Francisco say, Kyle, we love you, but you keep losing, we're going to move on? I don't know. Is it 10 years from now? Is it 5 years from now? I'm not sure. But the future of the 49ers is a bit concerning because you've got all these really expensive pieces. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, and that's going to really screw up your salary cap. And do you do 10 more years of Brock Purdy knowing there's a limitation there? Like, and then also I want to say this too, because I really, really like Brock Purdy. Like, I really think he handles stress
Mm-hmm.
very well. He handles big moments. He also acknowledges like he can be better. So maybe 5 years from now, maybe next year, Brock Purdy whittles away at his craft and gets a little better every year. And he is way better 2 years from now. Like, I don't want to rule that possibility out that he could just keep improving and get better and better. But right now, where Brock Purdy isn't good enough. Oh, maybe it is. I mean, they did just lose a Super Bowl. Like, they're not far off.
That's the crazy thing. This is the enigmatic nature of this conversation. The knee jerk reaction is to say he's not good enough. They went to overtime against the dynastic Chiefs. Like, they was so close. Like, how is it not enough? I don't know.
Well, the other uncomfortable thing is if their defense gets a stop, they win. Like,
And then he is getting paid. Like, then
yeah,
there's no way he's not getting paid.
well, what would the conversation be like today if Patrick Mahomes gets the ball second in overtime and throws an interception and Brock Purdy
Mm-hmm.
wins the Super Bowl? Like, that's why it's frustrating to me that like that Brock Purdy sucks. He's terrible. Kyle Shanahan's terrible coach. Like, they were so close. How can you be
It's
that
people playing the
close?
result, and that's why the talk, especially 2 days after the fact, the talk of like legacies and who's this and who's that. To me, and I get why it happens. I get why people do it in bars. I get why TV shows have the conversations the way they do.
Yeah.
It's wholly uninteresting to me because it's like, so if three plays go differently, then like suddenly, so Pat Mahomes is now 3-1 in the Super Bowl, and he's chasing Brady, and that's like the number one talking point that is going to get ran on ESPN for a while now.
He's
If he
3-2,
loses
isn't
that,
he? Am I crazy?
he's 3-1. He lost to Tampa, and they haven't lost another one. He's played in three. He's played in four,
Playing
rather.
4. No, I think it's 5. Am I
Is it
crazy?
five?
I think they lost to Super Bowl record. Let's find out. Let's correct the record. Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl record. He is Super Bowl. Let's see. Of course, he is. Why is it so hard to find? How many rings Patrick? He's got 3. Okay, maybe you're right. They've lost.
They lost to
Yep. Okay,
Tampa,
I
and
think
that
that's the only one
one.
they lost. I thought for some reason. No, Andy Reid. Andy Reid has lost the Super Bowl without. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Andy Reid. Okay.
So he's 3-1 in Super Bowls now with 3 MVPs. If again, your same hypothetical, he throws an interception on the second possession and they lose that game, that one throw is going to now, like, he goes to 2-2, and now suddenly like there's no way he could ever beat Brady when if that one throw goes differently than he's chasing Brady. Like, that's what I don't like about playing the legacy game now. I don't know.
Yeah. It's inappropriate to me to have that conversation already.
I agree.
Although, like, it's an incredible run. I mean, we have to
Of
also
course.
acknowledge Mahomes has done let's have the conversation about Mahomes. Let's enter this
Yeah.
now because first of all, they get the ball down 19-16 with I don't know, a minute 53 left. Do you remember that moment? Right after the 2-minute warning.
Yep.
I think the ball on the 25-yard line. And to me, it was inevitable. It's like he's going to go down and score. The question is, it will be a touchdown or a field goal. So, like, were you was it just me, or did you also feel like when they got the ball, a minute 53 left in the fourth quarter, down 3? I felt like I was certain they're going to score. Did you feel that way too?
Yeah, it felt like the only way they don't is if it's like something truly fluky, like it would like a tip pass at the line of scrimmage that is intercepted or something. A pass goes through like McCole Hardman's hands into Fred
Mm.
Warner's hands or something, and and that's the game, and it's something weird like that. Um, I thought if the drive was even like remotely clean, it was going to end up with at least three. And part of that is Harrison Butker's ability too. That guy's absolute stones, got a huge leg, so you don't really got to go that far to give him at
Yeah,
least a
he's a
shot.
great kicker. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So it felt mostly inevitable to me in the moment.
So I've got a thing, and I want your take on this because my dad and I were talking about this, and it's a fun theory to me. Mahomes, when you look at his personal life, and
Yeah,
I don't think it's out of bounds. His dad just got his third DUI like a couple days ago.
yeah.
His brother seems like an absolute pain in the ass. His brother
Nightmare.
seems like and then I could not be married to Brittany Mahomes. I would rip my
No.
eyeballs out. I
Yeah.
could not handle the energy she brings to the table. And I say all that to say, I think Patrick Mahomes is very comfortable with chaos. He's got an alcoholic dad. He's got a brother who's wildly inappropriate. He's got a wife who, to me, would be very obnoxious to be around all the time. And I think in a weird way, it actually works to his advantage where when there's a lot of chaos, you've got this moment where Travis Kelce runs into the coach and there's drama there and they're down in the Super Bowl. I think he's unfazed. I don't think he gives a single fuck. I think he's totally calm and comfortable with chaos all around him. And I think all of the stuff that's gone on in his life, uh, with the things around him, have actually kind of perfectly built him to handle chaos. Is that out of bounds, or does that make sense to you?
It does make sense, and I think that all this is kind of amalgamized in the way that he plays too. I mean, he's comfortable in even in like micro moments of not Super Bowl drive to win. It's like when if on 2nd and 7 in November when a play breaks down, he's very good at making something happen there, and that's kind of part of his game. So I think he does thrive more so than most, if not any, quarterbacks that I can remember recently in like truly difficult environments on like a micro and macro level, like you're describing. So yeah, I don't think that's like out of bounds to bring that up.
Well, and so Brady was the face of the NFL for a long time, or I don't know if he was exact, but he was. We all agree he was the best quarterback for a long time. Tom Brady was, and he clearly passed the baton to Patrick Mahomes. But I think Patrick Mahomes took it a step further than Brady ever did. Where I love Tom Brady a lot. He was my favorite player growing up, but he was never the best quarterback physically. Like he never best throw the football, never the
Mm-hmm.
like he never had the best highlights of any quarterback in the NFL. I would say Aaron Rodgers in that era was the one who like did the stuff where you're like,
Breeze, Rogers,
no one else
yeah,
can make that throw. And Mahomes is the rare mix of like, oh, he's the most successful and also the best. Like he does stuff other quarterbacks simply cannot do. And
yeah.
I I want to give credit to Mahomes. There's a video of him. You ever seen the video of him getting tackled and he full on scorpions. Like his head like
Mm-hmm.
hits the back of his heels. Like
Yeah.
just totally like and then they cut to a video of his trainer and him doing that like 4 months before in their weight room where he's like practicing that movement. And
Mm-hmm.
what I always loved about Tom Brady was he prepared so differently than other quarterbacks. Every little unique situation you could think of, he was stretching and doing the stuff and working on pliability. And Mahomes took the work ethic and the preparation of Tom Brady and then took it a step further to include other things that Tom Brady never even thought of. And I just think that I don't know that work ethic gets talked about with Patrick Mahomes very often because I think he makes it look so easy. And a lot of the stuff he does is off script where like it's not just him reading the defense perfectly. It's like the play breaks down, he runs left, he runs back right, throws back across the field, and it looks amazing. But the reality is he's been practicing that for 5 months. Like we can't even imagine that he's prepared for that moment, but he has because when you watch videos of him training, he totally has been doing that. Does that make sense? Like I think the unrecognized part of Mahomes is his preparation and the work he does in the offseason with his trainer to get ready for those kind of crazy moments.
Yeah, no, I think if I can inject another hockey analogy here, I think so. There's very quickly the two of the greatest goalies ever: Dominic Hasek on one side, Martin Brodeur on the other. Both had extreme levels of success, and you could make an argument for either one being the greatest goaltender that's ever played hockey. and they are very similar in the way you're describing here, where Dominic Hasek played like a wild man. It was all instincts, it was reflexes, it was spinning around and putting his hand down in the way, like without being able to see the play, like instinctually thinking it and kind of living in the moment and doing it that way, and thriving when things got chaotic. And Brodeur in this instance is like Brady, where everything is positioning, everything is sound, nothing is crazy. There are no limbs flying. It's studious and it's structured and it's very, very intense in the way that the preparation happened. And I think that when you bring it back to like the Mahomes Brady thing, the kind of the fireworks and the way that he plays the position Patrick does, it does supersede the preparation I think he does do, because it's just not as fun to talk about to most people. I think is really kind of the result there. But yeah, no, I definitely see it.
Did you have a good 4 hours like that? That the Super Bowl, was it fun for you? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did.
Why the
I don't
hesitation?
like to interject like my own fandoms into things in a forum where we're trying to like kind of be objective and talk about the game.
Sure.
I hate both these teams like ravenously. So
this was not the Super Bowl America wanted, by the way. We wanted Ravens Lions. Like, let's be clear.
For sure. This is not the Super Bowl I wanted. So like, yeah, it was fun in that like the Super Bowl happened. The game was pretty good. Kind of knew the entire time I wasn't going to love who won no matter what. Made some cash. Can't be mad at that. So yeah, overall, like I think that it was fun. But
You
I'm
made
looking
some
forward
cash.
to the
Don't
next
tell
one.
me where you maybe spent money, but did you gamble?
Yeah.
So that leads us perfectly to today's sponsor, Prize Picks. Do you want to do you know the ad read? Should I read it? I think I've sent it to you, but I can read it.
Read it. Go for it.
Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks allows you to make an entry based on player projections, and in 60 seconds, you can enter something like Patrick Mahomes throwing for over 250 yards, maybe Deebo Samuel having over 100 yards receiving, and maybe Travis Kelce having more than one touchdown. And if your picks are right, you can win money. Making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay, and they have weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. For example, there's a weekly event called Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Daily fantasy made easy. Good job, Austin. You killed it.
My guy's a
You
pro.
sat there perfectly.
It sounds like it was pre-recorded. So
I've done it so many times and not changed the wording, so I can just ramble it off.
It's perfect. I love. So I don't know how many sports podcasts you listen to. I think you said you don't listen to very many, right? Because you don't like to kind of
none, not a single one.
Yeah,
like I listen to video game podcasts.
I get it. Yeah. So I mean, maybe it's the same thing, but like I love when it's, I don't know, late April. You can do the math. You know how calendars work. When it's late April and there's an ad talking about like get your Michelob ready for March Madness, and it's like it's an old ad. It's April. It's late April.
Buddy.
Why are we running this ad still? Yeah, that's not. It's not going to happen here. At least not this episode.
Yeah, we got. This is the last one I can talk about football, basically. So I had to do it. Do you remember so we do another show. I think we're calling it Unchecked Boxes. We don't actually have an official title yet. It should come out soon, and I'm hoping we can like cross promote where like people see you here and they go to the other one. But do you remember the time we made like fake AI written ad reads?
Of course, yeah. Still got them saved.
We need to do that again. I think that was. I don't know if people are going to like that bit or not, but I thought it was very funny. I enjoyed doing it.
It was funny, especially on that show. I do things for me. things that make me laugh.
Our show, just to fuck around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want your thoughts like on the game itself. I know we've been talking about the game itself, but zooming in instead of zooming out. X's and O's between the lines, 60 minutes, whatever you want to say. Like, what I've got notes. We don't have to go through all of them. Just give me your thoughts. Where are you at? How do you take it wherever you want?
So I predicted that the Chiefs were going to win, and I said because of their defense playing great, and because Brock Purdy's not going to be good enough in a big moment.
Yeah,
And I've got a lot of messages from people saying, "Oh, you were right. You nailed your prediction." Because I legendarily hate making predictions. It makes me uncomfortable, and
yeah.
I don't like all the hate I get or even the praise. It just all of that conversation makes me uncomfortable, and I hate how polarizing everything is. And I've got a lot of messages from people saying, "Dude, you nailed your prediction," and I'm like, I don't know. I personally didn't feel like there was a key. Like when we saw the Super Bowl 4 years ago in 2020, when Jimmy Garoppolo had a guy open for a touchdown and missed that throw,
Yep.
it was very clearly like that's a mistake from Jimmy Garoppolo that cost him the game. There wasn't a moment like that to me. I mean, there was a tough throw to the end zone that could have been completed, but it was like he got hit as he threw. It wasn't very clean. There wasn't a standout play to me where Brock Purdy simply just failed and wasn't good enough,
Brock
in
Purdy.
my
No, I think
opinion.
if you have to assign a play that changed it to me, to my eyes, it
Yeah.
was the muff punt. I
Tell me
think
about
that's
that.
where I just think that's where it started. I think that that happens in a stage of the game where things were still very much up in the air with regards to the actual result.
Yeah.
But you're giving Kansas City the ball in obviously stellar field position. Um, it's not again like an interception or one of those type things where it's like a real like mechanical breakdown. It's just like a weird bounce, and then suddenly the Chiefs have the ball on the doorstep, and then they take it away, and the Niners didn't score in that quarter. Like that was the I just think that that's when you look at the timeline of the game, that's just where I think it started to go wrong
Yeah.
in a serious way for the Niners, and I think the Chiefs scored at least a field goal every time they touched the ball after that. I think I should have been more prepared on
You're
that,
right.
but I believe that's the
That is
case.
accurate. That is accurate. So that play happened end of the third quarter,
Yeah,
where about 3 minutes left in the third quarter, Kansas City punts the ball away, and the 49ers muffed the punt, which gave Kansas City the ball on the 16-yard line. And on the very next play, they scored a touchdown. It's
it's
giving them a lead
MVS, the
13-10.
16-yard MVS touchdown. Yeah,
Correct. And that you're right. The third quarter in general was terrible for Kansas City. Sorry for the 49ers, excuse me. They punted. They had three and outs. They lost a yard twice. Two drives they didn't even get a yard. And actually all three drives they didn't go anywhere. They lost a yard on two drives and then literally didn't. Third and 10 and fourth and 10 they punted the ball away. So the third quarter was terrible, and they kept throwing the ball on first down, which really I remember. We talked about this earlier. Like abandoning the run in the third quarter was the turning point for me. Where the muff punt sucked. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. But it was really that they kept trying to throw the football on first down that just drove me nuts. And they got away from what they do really well, which is running the football.
the KC defense I think absolutely committed to trying to contain run on early downs, and then I think the Niners, and this is what I glean from the box score. I think the Niners go into this game anticipating zone coverage
Yep.
later, like in especially in third down situations.
Mhm.
The Debo target share is what I think draws me there. Like he had 11 targets. Debo is their zone beater. If you could say that, he's not awesome against man cover. Against man coverage, he's great against zone. And the target share would indicate that the game plan saw San Francisco thinking that would be the look they got, and it's not the look they got at all. Casey played like 65% man, which they played a ton of cover zero. The only team that's played KC or that's played San Francisco with more man was Cleveland, week 6, and Cleveland won that game.
Yeah.
PJ Walker beat the Niners in that game because the Browns played like a ton of cover zero. They played a ton of man, and I don't think the Niners were ready for it. And I think they were going to say, okay, we're going to pin our ears back. We're going to blitz on third downs. We're going to trust our corners to be able to play man up on your guys and make Brock Purdy make plays. And he didn't when he
Well, here,
in the ways that he needed to. And I think it was genius on the part of Spagnuolo and co to approach the game
yeah.
this way.
No, Steve Spagnuolo coached a great game, and the problem with throwing the football in first and second, and not running, not getting any yards, is when you're 3rd and 10 against a team playing man defense and blitzing, You got to get the ball really quickly. There's not time to
Yep.
allow the play to develop. So you're going to have a guy coming free to hit Brock Purdy. He's got to catch the ball and get rid of it immediately. And you literally in that time can't get far enough downfield to get a first down. It's literally that simple. Like if you
This is something
have,
that Trent Dilfer said one time. Your guy, you got experience with him.
yeah, you're correct.
um, they were they were talking about. I think I heard him talking about Tua. It might have been someone different. I think it was Tua.
Probably Tua. He loves Tua. Like, yeah,
And the idea was that if you're sheltering a quarterback, I think a young quarterback was the way he phrased it, but just it doesn't matter. If you're sheltering a quarterback, most people think, okay, we're going to try to like be conservative on offense. We're going to run as much as we can and try to not make him have to make throws. But if you become predictable, which happens quickly, instead of sheltering a quarterback, all you're really doing is A, not allowing him to get into the flow of the game, and B, you're making him throw on like 3rd and 9 instead of 1st and 10 or 2nd and 6 or something. Like you are making it harder. And I think I don't want to say the Niners like fell into a trap because then it implies that like they're dummies or something. But I think that's the way that the Chiefs wanted the game to go, and they did a better job of imposing that, especially in the second half.
in that third quarter, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10. Like, so,
You're
I'm
not going to win
sorry,
games
but
that way with a guy like Brock Purdy. You're just not.
yeah, and I'm maybe the way to beat that kind of that scheme, I guess, is to if you can get away from the guy covering, get away from man coverage, meaning like if you can slip your defender and call a really good screen pass, maybe you can beat the blitz of the screen and McCaffrey can get behind everybody. That's like the only way because you're not gonna have time to let the play develop on 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 15 if they're blitzing an extra guy that you can't account for in pass protection. So a guy's coming free after the quarterback. He's got to catch and throw, and you can't get far enough downfield to get a first down. Man, it's literally that simple.
Ayuk
I
has
don't know,
six
man.
targets. Ayuk is, some would argue, probably the best man beater in the NFL. I think reception perception. Shout out to Matt Harmon
Sure.
has stats on that, and Ayuk's amazing against man. He has half the targets that Deebo Samuel does. I don't want to say they should have just done this because it's like, of course, but um, I think you can look at things like that and kind of see the DNA of the game and where it went on the KC defense side. I love the way they use Trent McDuffie as a blitzer. His timing is incredible. The way he would split, like he would get through C
Yeah.
gaps. There was a play specifically, I think it was late in the fourth, where he backs off like 2 steps right before the snap, and then he's able to split through. And I thought the Niners offensive line had a really hard time dealing with them bringing pressure from the secondary.
Yeah.
That Ayuk play the play we talked about earlier, that 3rd and 4 from inside the 10, where you've got Ayuk running open and Purdy couldn't see him because he's dealing with a free runner.
Yeah.
Several plays you notice where like the guard and center like pull to the same man, and you leave a runner. I was reading an interesting piece that apparently this is a Shanahan offense function. His quarterbacks don't call protections; the
Mm-mm.
centers do. Very
Correct.
interesting. I didn't know that about Shanahan, and
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people bashing Purdy, saying he's got to be better at assigning protection. So well, it's not his job.
So this is the part of the conversation now where I think I've defended Kyle Shanahan a lot here, right? I've said like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, he's never had a Lamar Jackson or a Herbert or a Mahomes or a Josh Allen. He never had a great top 10 quarterback or even top 5. He's had Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy,
Yeah,
and he unfortunately though, when you lose a game by 3 points in the Super Bowl, what's the really differentiation? Like, what's the differential here? What's the little deciding factor? It's coaching. It comes down to that. And he got outcoached by Steve Spagnuolo. Like the defensive coordinator for Kansas City called a better game than Kyle Shanahan did. It's literally that simple. As that third quarter, the 3 punts, getting I guess 3 drives in a row, getting a net of -2 yards is horrifying.
yeah,
And I that's the game, and that's in a game this close with again the muff punt mattered, but Kansas City had a turnover in the red zone.
yep,
There's such little margins, and you can't afford to have 3 drives in a row where you're not playing your best and you're not calling your best game, and that's what happened. And I don't know if that's to me, that's why I think it makes sense to criticize Kyle Shanahan. I'll defend the guy because I think he's a great coach, and the level of success he's had is unprecedented for most NFL franchises. But in the biggest game of the year, in a huge situation, he got out coached, and that's to me that's fact. Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, and it trickles down. I mean, the biggest play of the game was the last play of the game, but like one of the biggest plays of the game is in that same overtime. It's 4th and 1 with about 6 minutes left in the overtime period, and Mahomes runs a naked, which I thought was an RPO in the moment. It was actually just like a straight
Oh,
naked
dude, it was
boot
sick.
for 8 yards.
Yeah,
Bosa flies right by. Like it's and this is like these
yeah.
small coaching things. Like if the defensive end, it's always stay home. Like if he's there and he's meeting Mahomes on that naked, he probably makes that play, and we're looking at the Niners holding the Lombardi Trophy. And it's like these little things where over pursuing the handoff resulting in an 8-yard play is not usually that big of a deal, but when it's 4th and 1 in the Super Bowl, it's a huge deal. And it's this little stuff like that. They're just not all the way locked in. That's a great play design. So don't get me wrong. And they haven't dialed up a design run for Mahomes in like a year and a half or something. So you're not looking for that. But it's like the little tiny margin stuff is what boils down to, results. When again, to your point, it's a 3-point game.
Well, on top of that, the optics of what happened after the game, what Kyle Juszczyk said, the fullback for the 49ers, saying he didn't know the rules of overtime
Yeah.
is a thing that people can hang on to for a long time. It's a really bad look. So when you look at Kyle Shanahan and how he performed this week, he showed up to the podium for the interviews, the media day, appeared to be slurring his words and possibly drunk. We don't know that. It's speculation, but he didn't appear to be in his best frame of mind. And then you get out coached in the game. And then after the game, your players are making clear, hey, we didn't have a team meeting where coach laid out, here are the new rules for overtime. And on the, how do I say this? When I was in high school, we lost a game in a really embarrassing fashion. We were on World's Worst. We were not top 10 on Sports Center. And it was a moment where we didn't know the rule. Like we blocked a kick, they picked it up and ran for the game-winning touchdown. So we thought we blocked their field goal and won. The play wasn't over. They picked it up and ran for a touchdown. And our coach after the game said, hey, that's on me. We should have all known the rule. Like, I need to, as the head coach, tell everyone what the rule is. And apparently, Kansas City, like in training camp in August, was talking
Drilling it.
about the new
Yeah.
NFL overtime rules. They were very aware. And for the fact that at no point during this year, no point during their Super Bowl run, their playoff run, did Kyle Shanahan have the whole team in a room and say, hey, by the way, this is how overtime now works in a playoff game. That's a terrible look. It really does make your head coach look.
Shanahan claimed he knew and that he talked to the analytics team. And I believe that he knew, and I actually believe that the analytics conversation happened. But you have to have the conversation with the guys that are on the field, right? Not your analytics guys.
Well,
I mean,
the other
both, but
problem.
like,
So Kyle Shanahan says he told the staff
yeah,
to review the overtime rules with their players. So basically what that means is everyone breaks into different
delegated.
groups. The tight end group, the offensive lineman, the receiving room, the quarterback room, the linebackers room, the defensive line, the corners. Everyone goes and breaks away into their smaller, little module to meet with like 8 or 9 guys, depending on how big your group is. And I guess he had the position coaches relay the information. Hey, here's how the overtime rules work, which I get that because that's the best way to you trickle down the information.
Yeah.
But you got to say that to all 53 guys. You got to have them all in a room because it's not a very long conversation. And it's, hey, we're getting ready. It's literally like you're all in a room in the hotel. Everyone's at dinner and you're like, hey, here's a travel itinerary. By the way, this is something we all need to know and be on the same page about. You can't
It's a
delegate that to
footnote
other
at the end of a
people.
meeting. Yeah, it's a
Yes,
footnote at the end of a meeting if you want it to be. You could
correct.
make a handout. Have
But the
an
fact that
assistant make a handout.
Shanahan can't say I told the players that is really it's a bad regardless of whether you agree or not. It's a bad look. Optically, it looks terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other thoughts? Tell me about this game. Like what you came so I want to give you a round of applause, dude. So
Thank you.
prepared. I love you're a hockey guy. You're killing it, man. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, there's some stuff just during the game that was fun to notice. I like the way that San Francisco approached defending Kelce, even though he ended up having a good game. 1 catch, 1 yard at half.
Yeah.
They were putting Fred Warner on him, which was interesting because that's the idea, especially when he was isolated. When he was like isolated as a receiver, they were putting Fred Warner on him, which the whole Kelce thing, same thing that happened with like Gronk, right? Is like he's a matchup nightmare. Linebackers are too slow, DBs are too small, whatever. So they were coming out and they were putting Fred Warner on him when he was isolated, and then they were branching off of that in several different ways, like throwing different coverages at it, like going to a traditional like a 2-man look. They were putting like a robber man in there, and it worked really, really well. Like first half, obviously, and then the way that like Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes snuffed that out in the second half was impressive, and then it culminates in that play to Mahomes, which by the way, I don't know if you or the play to Kelce rather, which I don't know if you've seen, but that's like the fastest Kelce's ran in 7 years. Did you see that
Really?
stat? That
No.
in overtime, the how long was that play to Kelce? It
It was a
was
big one. Let me find exactly what it was. It
yeah.
was
It
Patrick
wasn't
Mahomes to
sorry, no, it wasn't
Kelce.
overtime. It was in the fourth quarter. It was 22
Yeah,
yards.
isn't that final drive
It was a third
before
and 7 with 16 seconds left, and he's pushed out of bounds at the 11 for 22 yards, and he was
22 yards? Yep.
flying on that play. And the play is really fun because he's lined up isolated, and they get Warner on him. It's the look they've been giving the entire game, and they run this mesh concept, and that's what gets him off. And Noah Gray sets like a fake pick right in between the hash marks. It's insane. They're running this mesh concept, and then Noah Gray steps right in front of Warner and stops, and then continues the route, and it gives that just that little moment where Kelce's able to finish the route, and Warner can't go anywhere. And then you hit Kelce, and he goes yak crazy, and they pick up, I don't know, probably 15 more yards after the catch. It was a really, really fun wrinkle by San Francisco that worked tremendously well in the first half. But this like secondary chess match in the pass game was really interesting as the game went on.
Well, what's unfortunate too is there's not a moment like that where you can point to for Kyle Shanahan, where he dialed up this amazing play design that was
No.
exactly right in the moment. There isn't a moment like that in the entire 60 minutes of this game. I guess longer because it was overtime. So, man, I don't know. It's unfortunate for
Oh,
Shanahan's sake.
also, George Kittle route participation. How many routes do you think he ran as a receiver? 4? He was targeted twice, I think.
Yeah,
And
not a lot.
on the next gen stats site, they'll track route participation if you run more than 5 routes. He's not on there. So, and I get they're trying to run the ball. They stop running the ball. Kittle's a great blocker. He's out there to block. That's fine. Get CMC in space. It's all well and good. He's still a very talented player who's great in space and who's one of your playmakers. And he felt like a complete non-factor. And it felt like it in the moment, and then I felt like it kind of as I think about the game more, and I'm looking into the stats more, and I'm like, okay, what's the story of this game separated from what I watched with 10 other people? Kittle felt like he wasn't there.
Well, the other part that this doesn't matter. Like this is a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an ESPN bullshit type thing. But all
Yeah.
week everyone talks about the two best tight ends in football, and is George Kittle maybe better than Travis Kelce? And it does suck too that like one of the results of this game is that there is no comparison. Like Kelce on paper way outperformed Kittle simply because he had more opportunities. He was literally like being used
Absolutely.
more. It's like we didn't get a shot to see what Kittle could do. It's like, damn it, man.
No, George Kittle has 2 catches for 4 yards on 3 targets.
Man.
One of those catches went for
how many
0
how many
yards.
were I think one of them was like a chip too, where like it's a flat route where like it's a bootleg to the right.
Yeah, I think that one went for 0 because he had 4 yards and his long was 4. Like he had 4 yards on one catch,
Yeah.
he had 0 yards on the next, then he had a target that was not a catch, and that was the story of his game.
But again, also credit has to go to Kansas City. I mean, their defense not only they called a great game defensively, but their defense executes at a high level. Like I don't know that
the KC defense was the most
so
impressive part of this
underappreciated,
game
man.
for me. Even more so than the KC defense was the single most impressive like element of this game to me, more so than even the offense. Because I think the offense, while it played well, especially at the end, it definitely sputtered. It wasn't perfect. The defense played great. Like I said, I love their approach to the game schematically. I love the way they executed. Mike Pennell is amazing, a journeyman nose tackle who like consistently is winning on early down, like allowing them to play this way where they're getting the Niners in 3rd and long, difficult situations that they can dial blitzes up. It involves like stopping the run on early downs and ideally doing it without sending extra help. And Mike Pennell played such a good game, and no one has ever heard of him before. And it was like, this is awesome.
You've got family in Vegas, so you probably I would think are tuned into what happens in the Raiders organization. But like,
following the NFL is helpful more than that. But yeah.
So do you remember the Raiders beat Kansas City 20-14 with like 3 weeks to go in the season?
Yeah.
And it was
I was in
like,
Vegas for that game actually.
It's I see. You said you didn't know, but fuck you. I knew it. I knew it.
That game of all, yeah, that I happened to be in Vegas. I
That's
wasn't
hilarious.
at the game, but
No,
I was in town for that game. Yeah,
that's hilarious. See, I knew the connection mattered a little bit. What was interesting about Kansas City this year? I mean, they started off like 1-1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They started 6-1. It's not like they struggled early on,
for sure.
but we remember they lose to open the season to Detroit, have this really ugly game, and I think early on, Kansas City had to learn to win a different way than they've ever won before. We already know they didn't have Tyreek Hill, but they didn't really have a number one receiver. They were very limited at receiver, very young. Like it took a while for Rashee Rice to really take off and become what he became later in the year. And I, the story of the year, like the reason Kansas City even got to a Super Bowl, let alone won, was all year their defense was incredible. And like the stories, we talk about Andy Reid, we talk about Patrick Mahomes because he's the best quarterback in football, but like I think we know this now, but I remember thinking this like, I don't know, week 12 or 13, like this defense is carrying this football team. Like it's really, and it's the way they won this year was so different than the way they've won in the past with big plays and a ton of explosive stuff from Patrick Mahomes. They won with like a lot of stuff underneath, very safe, very methodical, not generating the big plays they've generated in the past, and then playing lights out incredible defense. And the reason I bring up that Raiders game is like that was their offense. They couldn't score more than 14 points against the Raiders. They lost 20-14 to the
Yeah,
Raiders with a quarterback who didn't complete a pass in the second half. Like, so the defense was the story all year. The offense was the one that had to kind of play catch up and figure things out. And I I mean, this is a defense Kansas City is so good. Did you watch? I'm sure you did the AFC title game against the Ravens, where I thought Kansas City's defense made Lamar Jackson, who I thought at the time, maybe with hindsight now, like Joe Burrow didn't play this year and Justin Herbert got hurt and Josh Allen had kind of a down year with a different Bills team and an offensive coordinator change. But I thought at the time, Lamar is the second best quarterback on the planet and they made him look pedestrian, that defense. So the defense just deserves a lot of credit, is what I'm trying to say here. I mean, all year that they were led by their defense. And I think we give credit to the wrong people often, which is we talk about Mahomes and Andy Reid, but what's forgotten is Steve Spagnuolo and the incredible effort all year the defense gave in Kansas City.
yeah.
Um,
That is what easily I walk away from this game thinking the most beyond anything else. They were not afraid to go into this game and play the way that they felt would get them there, even if they had played other ways earlier in the season, or if it was perhaps aggressive. People are so scared of being aggressive in big moments, and I think that's where like Spagnuolo really shines. Um, Dallas is my team, which sucks, but they Dallas played San Francisco early in the season, and Dallas was one of the most successful man coverage teams in the entire NFL this year. And they played Brock Purdy like he was Dan Marino, and it gave that whole offense enough time and space to like completely eat them alive with Christian McCaffrey, with speed routes and getting Debo in space, and all this kind of little things that happen when you just completely shell up. And the Chiefs just refuse to play it. And like I said, I'm never going to forget. I'm never going to stop talking about the fact that Steve Spagnuolo called cover zero in 1/4 of snaps against Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl. Like it's amazing to me that happened, because that's a guy who's like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we have no qualms, and we're going to send a ton of pressure, and we're going to trust our guys, and it worked out.
Dude, I'm really proud. I guess I said like my prediction was not perfect, but I remember saying like that's the matchup of the game. Like, how does Brock Purdy handle the pressure Kansas City brings at him? And I don't know where you land. Like, I think we should recap kind of like our final, like put a bow on this conversation,
Yeah,
which is one of the things we can start by putting a bow on is like, I think Brock Purdy was totally fine. I think as given the defense he played against, one that made Lamar Jackson look pedestrian, to have no turnovers, to have a fairly okay game, to not have any horrible plays. Do you feel like Purdy was fine? Again, we've talked about it a lot, but given the way he was played, given all the stuff that happened, I think Purdy was okay. Not great, not
yeah.
horrible, kind of what he normally is.
I agree. He was okay, and I to keep kind
And
of bringing it back.
not the problem either, I don't think.
Yeah, no, he was okay, and the Chiefs knew. I genuinely believe that like that Spagnuolo knows, like, okay, if we can make Purdy okay, and we can do our best against CMC, like this has a really, like there's a really good chance this goes our way. and they did exactly what they had to make him okay, and it worked. It worked wonders. So yeah, I think that all of these things can be true. Where it's like, yeah, even though they made life hard on Purdy, Purdy didn't play like that poorly. He's not the reason, like you said. This is a lot of really, really high level football chess match happening, and a team that has Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and Steve Spagnuolo won by 3 points in overtime. And I don't know what more you have to say other than like, yep, this is what happens when matchups like this happen.
Another thing, in the fourth quarter, I guess in overtime, 4th and 1, Patrick Mahomes runs for 8 yards, gets a first down on like the 30-yard line, leads to a touchdown to win the game. If Patrick Mahomes gets tackled on that quarterback keeper and the 49ers win by 3, they win 22-19.
Yep.
Or 20, it should be, no, it'd be 22-19. Yeah. So the MVP of the game would have been Christian McCaffrey with 80 yards rushing and a touchdown catch and 80 yards receiving. Who else would you give? If the 49ers had won, who else would you have given it to?
I swear to God, I'd give it to Juwan Jennings.
Why? Really? McCaffrey was the leading rusher and the leading receiver in this game for the 49ers.
Okay, I'll say this. I checked on a service that we're not going to say by name.
Mm-hmm.
Juwan Jennings was the non-chief favorite late in the game.
What does that mean?
So,
odds to win MVP.
Odds to win the MVP, yes. Mahomes was the favorite because the Chiefs were the favorite.
Is that because he threw a touchdown and had a touchdown catch?
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 touchdowns in a game where they scored 3, right? So
that's fair. Oh, another thing we haven't talked about at all, actually, that's like insane. The blocked PAT.
As soon as it happened, I was like, that's going to matter. It never doesn't. It never not matters, right? The block PAT, it always matters. It always matters.
That would have changed everything.
I knew it was going to matter. Yeah, I'm not special to say I knew that. Yes, it did, could have, would have, should have. I don't know. It did. Yeah.
Well, think about this, right? So Kansas City was down by 3 with 1:53 left. All they need is a field goal to tie the game. If they make the PAT earlier in the game, it's a 4-point game. You need a touchdown, and we might not have even had overtime. Like,
yeah,
man, I don't know. Like that, I can't believe we went an hour and we didn't even talk about the missed PAT yet. But it played a huge part of the game. Like, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Anything, any little nerdy details we haven't hit on yet?
We had the longest made field goal in Super Bowl history, correct?
Twice, 55 then 57.
I thought 56 was the original record. Okay.
No,
we had it twice. All right.
Both kickers broke the record actually back to back.
Okay. Even better then. I thought it was 56, and then Moody almost broke it, and then Butker did. But no, we had it twice. Even better.
Moody
That's
broke
awesome.
it at 55, and then Butker a quarter later broke it for a second time, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, a factoid that will go forgotten. That's part of why I wanted Juwan Jennings to win MVP, was because I think it would have been really funny trivia in 20 years when you got like a game with, all these like superstars that come together for
Mahomes,
this game.
McCaffrey, Kelce, and then
Samuel,
Juwan Jennings wins MVP.
And then Juwan Jennings wins MVP. Yeah, and it's like in the 28-3 game, James White has 3 touchdowns, doesn't win MVP, and it's like, okay, like, if he doesn't win MVP in that game, it's going to be really hard for a non-quarterback to win MVP. And I thought we really had a shot if the Niners win that game and Juwan Jennings gets MVP. I thought that would have been fun trivia.
It would not have been Brock Purdy. It would have been McCaffrey or Juwan Jennings, for sure.
It absolutely would have been McCaffrey or Juwan Jennings. There's no way it's Purdy unless something like really crazy happens. Yeah.
What's the future for Brock Purdy? Like, do you think... I think if he comes back next year... Here's what's... I really think this should be said about Brock Purdy, because all the kid has done is, like, we talk about he's not good enough. We say he's like the 15th best quarterback in football, which I think is accurate to say. Yeah. But credit to the kid, man. Like, year one, as the last pick of the draft, goes to the NFC title game and gets hurt. In his second year, he goes to the Super Bowl. Like, that's unbelievable. I think that needs to be said too. Like, it's kind of insane how things transpired for him.
I've got really jaded thoughts on how the quarterback position gets talked about in the greater discourse, which is something I think we'll probably disagree on, because...
Talk about it. Bring it up. Let's talk about
Um,
it.
I don't know. I think there's how do I frame this in a way that doesn't completely derail the
Remember who
point
you're
from the
talking to,
start?
by the way.
I know that's what I'm
Former
saying,
quarterback.
but it's not even like it's a knock. It's just like I think that like I just think you think about it in the way that like most people do, and maybe I'm the wrong one. I probably am, but like I hate this idea. First of all, I don't think wins should be quarterback stats. I
No,
just don't.
that's fair.
They shouldn't be. They're not running back stats. They're not tight end stats. They're not wide receiver stats. They're not
Well,
defensive
a
end
great
stats. They shouldn't
quarterback
be.
put on a shitty team that loses a bunch of games shouldn't get faulted for that.
No, it, wins aren't a pitcher stat. Wins aren't a quarterback stat. I hate that, but I think that the
Yeah.
greater messaging of that is that through the importance of the quarterback position and the way it's described in the media and in the discourse, from the draft to the end of the Super Bowl, it really makes you feel like there's 21 other guys that don't show up. Like it's so much the conversation feels like it's quarterback on quarterback, and I get that it's the most important position in the game. I truly do. I believe that, and I support that idea. Jared Goff made a Super Bowl when he was not that good, not that long ago, on the back of a really strong team and a really strong coaching staff. I think Brock Purdy did something similar. Rex Grossman made a Super Bowl once upon a time. This idea that like you have to, the idea that you have to win a Super Bowl to be like an elite player, and conversely, the idea that you have to have an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl, I think is kind of unfounded to me. Um,
Mm.
and I think that rears its head and kind of dovetails when you have this Brock Purdy conversation, because the idea is he's so young, he's so inexperienced, he's won all these games, he made a Super Bowl. Well, he's winning games and he's so young, so he clearly must be great. And it's like I don't. He might be great, but it's to me, it's not because of the games he's won the way he's won them. Like I don't know.
Have you ever seen the clip of Nick Bosa going up to Brock Purdy and saying like, "Did you know you'd be this good?" And Brock Purdy, like, I think genuinely is a really humble dude who like really believes
Yeah,
this. He said like, "Oh, I can be so much better," and that's true. Like Brock Purdy has a lot of room to grow as a player, and I
yeah.
think he acknowledged that and owns it. And I'm curious if he does continue to grow. Like, I guess thinking about it now, the last pick of the draft, he would have probably. I would imagine he's on a 4-year contract. We have 2 more years probably till Brock Purdy's eligible to get a new contract. It's next year for sure, and maybe it might be even 2 more years of Brock Purdy getting paid
I think
nothing.
after next season he's extension eligible, right?
Let's just fucking
I think
Google it.
that's
Let's
how that
find out.
works, right? The year before.
Yeah, you Google it. I'll talk. I think that to me, like when you give a quarterback all of the praise and then all of the blame, you don't acknowledge all of the other I don't like 150, 200, however many people it is that are part of an organization all work together. Where scouting,
Absolutely.
the general manager, bringing players in, coaching, all the teammates that help the players, all the guys in the practice squad, like it's such a part of everything. And you can have a, like I said, Matthew Stafford played for years in Detroit and didn't win anything because he was in a terrible organization with no help. And the minute Matthew Stafford went to the Rams, a great organization with a lot of help around him, wins the Super Bowl and plays amazing. And I just think it has to be acknowledged that every quarterback needs help, and not only from the teammates, but the organization around him. And there are so many examples of quarterbacks who spent years with terrible organizations, never got help, and therefore never got properly appreciated. So, I mean, I agree. I think quarterbacks, as much as I love them, as much as it's like I built a career talking about them, they're not everything. And what I think you're kind of getting at is that Brock Purdy would not be where he is without the help. Like Brock Purdy in Seattle would not have gone to an NFC title game and a Super Bowl the next year in the first years of his career. That's just fact.
No, he wouldn't. I've called him mediocre, which is aggressive, and I own that that's aggressive speak. But like, if we're using the word mediocre as like what it actually means, like I think that calling him, mediocre or mid or whatever
Middle of the
is
road.
like it's completely fair to me. And I again I think that the discourse has shifted so strongly in that every success or failure a team has is directly routed to the quarterback. Um I just think that's the wrong way to approach the discourse on quarterbacks. But that, again, that's just me. But I think that like ESPN and the media have done a lot to like ruin that too. So
Our society also doesn't know how to handle middle. Like we're so
no,
extreme. You're either the best ever or total garbage. We have no. I talked about this with Jared Goff. Like we have such a hard time acknowledging people that are like they're good. I made an analogy on my last episode. My ex girlfriend. I dated someone who was like meeting 80% of my needs. And I was always focused on the 20% of things I wasn't getting rather than appreciating the 80% of what I was getting. And that relationship was good enough. I could have made it work for a long time, but I was so focused on the negative parts, I didn't appreciate what I had. When we have 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, those people that are not, whether this is dating, whether that's whatever it is, just as a society, I think part of what we struggle with is we don't appreciate that level of 7 or 8 out of 10, that getting mostly it's almost all of what we need, and it's and they might be missing a few things, but that doesn't mean they're terrible. Doesn't mean they're not worth appreciating. Jared Goff is an incredible quarterback who played outstanding this year, and the fact that he doesn't get appreciated drives me nuts. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
Jared Goff's good enough to win a Super Bowl for sure. Now he's not who he was a couple years ago with the Rams. Even like he's a way better quarterback who played at a really
of
high level this
course.
year.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. We just do such a bad job of appreciating um, that mid tier, whatever that
I think it
means. And in
absolutely
fact, we call it
manifests
a thing and
itself.
make fun of it.
Yeah, it's like it's mid, whatever. And like I've done that, and like we've all done it. But again, like
Yeah.
I don't think that. I'm curious your thoughts as someone who played the position. Like I don't think game manager should be a pejorative, right? People use it as an insult, and I get how it's morphed into that. If that is a job in which you excel at and you help your team win a lot of games by being a successful game manager because the team that they've put around you is able to like make the superstar plays and you're good in this role, why is that a bad thing?
I know how to frame this conversation, I think. So Brock Purdy's a Prius.
Yeah,
That's the way to talk about it. Brock Purdy is not a Lamborghini. He's not even like an amazing like Ford Raptor or something. He's a Prius. He's got a function. There's a reason you use him. He's not the most sexy. He's not the most amazing, but I know a lot of people that own a Prius. They got a good deal. They got a low car payment. They get great gas mileage to save a lot of money, and the car gets them it meets all of their needs.
exactly.
Why make fun of someone who's got all their needs met?
And that's
And
so if Brock Purdy is a sorry to cut you off. If Brock
yeah,
Purdy
go.
is a needs meter, that's totally fine. And I'm
Yeah.
totally happy with Brock Purdy as a needs meter. But we shouldn't start calling him and putting him in Lamborghini tiers because he's really good as a needs meter. He's
Yes.
not one of those guys. He just isn't. And so many people have gotten so mad at me for saying that. And it's like, well, what do you want him to like not throw the ball to open guys? Do you want him to just not win? It's like, no, but that's not the conversation. Like that's
So,
not
did you ever see my car in high school? I know I moved high schools,
maybe.
but I got a Volkswagen Jetta for free from a drug dealer down the street who said, if you can get it started, you can have it for free. So I figured out how to get it running. I cleaned off the black mold. It had leaks everywhere. It was a horrible fucking car, but it worked enough.
Yeah.
But it was not a good car. Like, it was not reliable. It broke down all the time. Like, that's actually a bad experience. That's an experience worth making fun of. The
Mac
Prius that never
Jones.
breaks down, that never has a problem, that gets exactly where we need to go. It's reliable. It's economic. That you shouldn't make fun of that. Brock Purdy is the Prius here. He's not garbage. He's not the Volkswagen Jet I got from a drug dealer. It wasn't reliable. No, he does exactly, he serves his function properly. But also, so let's not pretend he's the drug dealer car, but let's also not pretend he's racing in, I don't
Exactly.
know, an F1 race or something. Like he's neither, and we just got to do a better job as society appreciating and acknowledging that mid tier.
It's
It's
because
that simple.
saying someone's okay, saying someone's decent, saying someone's the 13th best quarterback in the league, that's just boring. Like, it's boring on TV. People don't want to do that in bars. I think that people are kind of scared of that nuance, which that's, again, it's more of a societal conversation than a Super Bowl 58 conversation. But yeah,
Here's how we do it though. If someone told me, "Hey Zach, you're average, you're mid," I probably would be offended. I think you might too. Like, I wouldn't feel great about that.
sure.
But what if we said, "Hey Zach, you're meeting all my needs, or you're really dependable. I trust you. I believe that in a big moment, you're not going to fall apart." Like, those are all ways to say a very similar thing in a positive way. And I
We
feel
can
that
succeed with you doing the job laid out for you.
correct.
Like,
And that's Brock Purdy. I trust Brock Purdy. And I knew one thing about Brock Purdy going into this game. And I've said this with my dad on the couch during pregame. Because people were saying, like, Brock Purdy needs a quarter to settle in. No, the fuck he doesn't. the dude's he's ready for the moment. Like no matter what you say about Brock Purdy, he's not going to run for 70 yards and a touchdown. He's not going to break a tackle and throw a crazy touchdown. But the dude wasn't nervous. The dude didn't need to settle in. He did his job. He did a great job. Like again, you trust him. He's reliable, but he's also not much more than that.
They were probably going to score an opening drive touchdown if CMC doesn't fumble on like the 17-yard line. Like it's their or second drive, whatever, an early touchdown. Like I don't know. The Purdy discourse is I think we've said all we can say on it, but like it's disappointed me a little bit because again, I feel like it's very evident. It's an evidentiary of where like sports discourse is, and like we're here having sports discourse because it's something we care about. I care about it immensely. And there's degradation happening, I think, as part of this. And it's not to say like the world's ending or anything like that, but like I think that this has been like a truly eye-opening experience seeing the way people talk about Purdy on both sides of things, and no one will just be like, you know what, maybe he's just okay.
But the 49er fans that say he's a top 5 quarterback are also insane. And the ones
of course,
everyone's wrong. He's not garbage, and he's not a top 5 quarterback.
Of course,
he's 15th.
Yeah.
Well, there's one moment we should talk about that.
Okay.
I'm nonplussed by it. I don't care. It's worth talking about though, and I think it is. Yeah. I think we can talk about it for like 5-10 minutes. Do you know what I'm gonna? Do you want to guess what I'm gonna talk about?
Yeah, it's the Kelce.
Guess. What do you think it is?
It's the Kelce Reed interaction.
Yeah. So Travis Kelce runs up to Andy Reid. I think it is out now what he said, but I don't remember what he said. I
actually haven't heard, so please enlighten me.
Well, I think it's basically like I need to be in the game in this moment, something like that, right? But Travis Kelce gets in the face of his head coach Andy Reid. Kind of hits him a little bit, like kind of startles him, and then screams at him like inappropriately. Yeah. Like if someone I was dating or a friend of mine, or like if you screamed at me that way, I'd be offended. I'd be like, dude, don't do that to me.
Yeah.
So I personally unbothered because I played football. I think football is it's not the real world. It's a different setting entirely. Like everyone's got these crazy emotions.
Sidebar, I love that when people are like, well, I don't get to do this at my job. It's like, no, you don't. You're right. You don't.
But you work in an office,
people at your job. You don't get to fight people and go to the penalty box for 5 minutes at your job. Professional athletes live a different life than you in more ways than one. So stop comparing your job to theirs. Okay, it's seen. That's all I needed to say.
Now, that being said, it always did make me, when Tom Brady would break an iPad in half, I always hated that. I'm like, control your emotions, dude. Like, because I don't think it's I can both acknowledge I don't care that Travis Kelce yelled at his coach and acknowledge like I would never do that. Like I just, because the person I was on the field is also the person I was off the field. I just not. And then when you see Tom Brady destroy an iPad, you're like, well, when his kids act out, does he destroy the kid's phone and throw it all over the driveway? Like I've always thought about that. Like you can't, but I also don't think it's a fair I can acknowledge I also think it's an unfair criticism. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do I care? Or you said you don't care. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I think it was inappropriate. I think it was super inappropriate, actually. What does that mean?
If Andy Reid, the coach, had taken offense, because Andy Reid handled it like didn't give a fuck after the game, was like totally calm and downplayed it. But if Andy Reid didn't downplay it and wanted to be mad about it, it would have been a problem, right?
Yeah, it would have been a team problem, and maybe it is. Maybe he like in a week or two after we won the Super Bowl, that's great. Maybe he rips into Travis in like a phone call and is like, "Don't ever do that to me." And I would support him if he did. Like he probably won't, but like I would support that if that happened. But do I like actually care? No, I mean I saw Swifties were like she should break up with Travis because who would do that? That was like a genuine thing.
So let's be clear. The minute Travis Kelce did that to Taylor Swift, she'd dump him in the heartbeat. I don't think Taylor not. She would not.
I would tend to doubt it. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't care on like a personal level that much about the way that exchange happened, but I do think it was inappropriate. I do. Like I think that taking the frustration out on like the Gatorade jug or the iPad, like that's not another person. And I get like it's not like the time to have like, feelings or whatever in that way, but like there's still just like the respect for the authority. There's the respect for your coach. There's like whatever. And there are moments that players have had with their coaches and teammates that have not been too far off of that. So to say that it's like this crazy incident is, I think, not where necessarily I'm going. I think it was like a half step too far.
Well, a couple of things. I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question, and I've got a couple
Yeah,
things to say.
please.
Number one,
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't mind if Travis Kelce apologized. Like if he
Yeah.
just acknowledged, like, hey, probably shouldn't yell at my coach like that. Would kind of like that. But
Yeah.
also, like, I played quarterback, and quarterback to me is a little closer to kicker or punter in that, like, I'm one of the only people on the field who was like zen and like chill and like not yelling,
Yeah.
like, because it had to be. I had to be
You're
calm
not
making
hitting someone
decisions.
every play. Like,
So
so
you played guard, right?
tackle.
How do you
How
go
dare
from
you?
destroying a defensive tackle and then immediately like you walk away and suddenly you're supposed to turn that off and be calm and chill? Like
Yeah.
I don't like this is why I don't care that Travis Kelce did it because when you're on the field as a player, I also think it's why Andy Reid didn't care that Travis Kelce did it because he acknowledged like you're a football player. You went from
Yeah.
hitting a guy 10 seconds ago to now you're supposed to just turn that off, calm down, and have a very like, hey, you tap Andy Reid on the shoulder. Hey, coach, in a big
You're not
moment, can I maybe
wrong, but
stay
like
in the
every
field?
player does that, right? Like this isn't happening constantly.
Yeah.
So I get that. I get like the you can't turn it off thing. But a bunch of players are capable of turning it off. No, this isn't happening every week, right? So
Does it matter that it's Travis Kelce, who is arguably the best tight end ever? I don't think he is the best tight end ever, but people would argue he is. Like, does he get more rope than like, a bad player that's a
I don't
backup?
know. I don't know if he should. Maybe he should. This is my bias coming out because I'm not like the biggest Travis Kelce guy ever. I part of me is like, and again, I recognize my biases here 100%, but like I'm wondering, like, so
Yeah.
when you see someone like if Brady had like a similar interaction, like he would yell at Bill, like they've had their shouting matches on the sideline before, 100%. For me, like my initial thought process when it's Brady is like he's doing this because he cares about winning so much, and when Travis does it, it's like he does it because he like feels like he deserves the ball. And again, I don't. I recognize that I have like other reasons that I might think that are like invalidate that or that might not even
Like
be
what?
true, and you might disagree. I don't know. I just he seems like the kind of he just seems immature. He seems like an immature person, and he's matured, I think, more than he used to. But I think that in a lot of ways, he's still like a really immature person who thinks that, like because he's Travis Kelce, like he deserves to have the ball like whenever he wants it. And I think that's a lot of projection, and that's probably not fair. But like that's my gut reaction seeing that is like, oh man, he really thinks he deserves the ball right now. Whereas like when someone like Brady does it, it's like it's for the win.
Sure.
It's like Kobe Bryant used to not pass the ball because he genuinely thought in his heart of hearts that him taking a shot in four guys' faces was the best thing he could have done for the team. That's how I feel like Brady thinks, right? Where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah. You have to think that way, though. You have to.
you
And
do.
and the thing is, when Travis Kelce says, "Hey, in a big moment, I should have the ball," he's kind of right. That's like the thing is,
That's
you
not wrong
probably
either.
should. He
Yeah,
is the best player on their offense, other than the quarterback, right? Like, so who should get targeted in a big moment? Who should be involved in a big moment? It's fucking Travis Kelce, and he is right about that. That's like the uncomfortable part. Is like, well, he's not wrong, And
a lot of people got mad at Jamar Chase for demanding the ball after a loss that they'd had, and then the next week he had 15 catches and won by 3 touchdowns. So it's like,
And
okay,
this
like
is why. So, in this storyline, we should probably get off it. We've already talked a lot about it, but and the whole storyline of Travis Kelce yelling at Andy Reid and is he a bad boyfriend? Taylor Swift should break up with him. Is the thing that needs to be acknowledged is, and the round of applause has to go to Andy Reid because Andy
yeah,
Reid took it, handled it, and said, "Look, my best player on offense, other than my quarterback, just yelled at me. How do I want to handle this? Do I want to make it a big deal or not? How about not? How about we just like water on a duck's back. You just let it glide right off. It's not a big deal. Who cares? And I think that's beautiful. Like there was a great meme going around like Bill Belichick would have traded him to Russia tomorrow, right? Like Bill Belichick would have cut Travis Kelce and traded him for a bag of chips. Like Andy Reid's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I need him next year. We won a Super Bowl. We're trying to go for 3. Let's just not make a big deal out of this. I think that deserves some also acknowledgement is Andy Reid. The way he handled all of it was
yeah.
perfect.
Unless Travis Kelce said some like really deplorable stuff, like I don't think it's anything like shouldn't be moved past. I'm sure it already is, like
Oh,
in
they don't
in
care.
in
They
most
let's
ways.
be
Yeah,
clear.
like
No one gives a fuck in that locker room 10 seconds after it happened. Like
yeah.
that's just the truth. Like no one even like 2 plays later was thinking about that moment ever again. You move on. It's who cares? That's football.
It's getting talked about now because Travis is like one of the more visible faces on
No,
earth right now, frankly.
it's
And like,
because he's dating Taylor. Like that
exactly. Like,
5 years ago, that same player, same situation, not dating Taylor Swift, no one would have cared. Like,
and I don't think anybody's going to care in like 2 weeks. Like, I don't think this is not
well,
going to, I don't
no,
think,
no, no.
you don't think?
I know, like the girl I'm seeing's mom was like, "Oh, I would break up with Travis Kelce tomorrow. I should probably never change." He probably imprinted her opinion of him forever
That
now.
was like
Like,
first impressions. Like, first
correct.
impressions matter. Like,
Yeah.
that was the first non like football impression.
Some people that haven't followed Travis Kelce or saw Travis Kelce for the first time screaming at his coach and went, "Fuck that guy forever." That is true. That's why he
Yeah,
should
that's
apologize.
fair.
Just to save
That's
face.
fair. But most people who have like existed in the football area before they started dating are gonna like not care about this in 2 or 3 weeks or less,
Correct.
and it's just gonna like cease to be a story, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
I have two more Super Bowl questions.
Okay.
But first of all, is there anything else about the game we should talk about? Have we left anything on the table? I want to just exhaust this conversation entirely. Anything else we should talk about before we leave?
As far as the game goes, not a ton. No. Hope Drake Greenlaw gets better. That sucks.
Dude,
Super bummer.
we should
The way
talk
that
about that
happened.
actually. He's like so excited to run on the field, he tears his Achilles, basically. Like stepping onto the
That's
field.
literally what happened. Yeah, and I guess he had been dealing with like Achilles tendonitis for a couple of weeks, so like he was compromised already.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because that doesn't happen to most people.
How brutal is that, by the way?
What?
How fucking brutal is that? Like, you're running
It's the
onto the
worst.
field for the Super Bowl and you tear your Achilles. I feel so bad.
So it happens like late in the second quarter, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
Like that's about when it happens, and like I don't know, one player of 11 early in the game. It's hard to say like if this then that. More importantly to me personally than like trying to litigate whether or not this game gets won by San Francisco, if Dre Greenlaw, who is a fantastic player, is on the field for the rest of the game, like to me it's like this just sucks. Now he's 26, like he's not like this is like a last run for him. He's not like an old player by any stretch, but like this is a really brutal injury that, like, given the position he plays and the way he plays it, like, will certainly have an impact on his career, and that's a bummer because the dude's a great player. So, T's and P's to Drake Greenlaw for whatever that's worth. But yeah.
Okay, now we got to talk about the snacks and stuff. What was your setup for the Super Bowl? Like, what I had nachos and wings and a really good. I had a cider that's the new favorite cider I've ever had. It was I have it pulled up. It's huge. It's very important. I had a whiskey peach cider from Western Cider Company in Montana, and it wasn't
Okay.
sweet. It was like it wasn't savory. It was like honey. It was like barely sweet. Like it
Okay.
was just perfect. It was so good. What did you have? Who did you watch with? What was your Super Bowl experience like?
So we drove to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
I watched with most of my groomsmen / like best friends growing
Nice.
up, and
Anyone I would know?
no.
Dang. Okay.
And yeah, no, I mean that genuinely. They're a lot of them are like having kids now, and any time to get together is a good one. We
Mhm.
did it in one of their family homes. So this me and this group, this is like backstory, this isn't necessary, but like me and this group, we'd play like basketball and 3-on-3 football and stuff in on the street as kids do in front of one of these gentlemen's parents' house. And so they kind of became like second and third parents to us, and it was
Yeah.
put up with us yelling expletives into the night way too late and hitting mailboxes and just being like hooligans over 3-on-3 touch football. So his mom is actually like used to be, she's retired, used to be the lunch lady at Gilbert Park.
Oh. Okay.
So she's like used to feeding people, and she always fed
Huh.
us. Like she'd make big spreads. So she made chili and cornbread that was delicious. It was so good. My ex-girlfriend. That's a joke that people listening to this won't get because we're not on our show.
We shouldn't
My
explain it either.
fiance.
We should just
Okay, never
let
mind.
people find out on the other podcast.
Okay, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Austin and his
made
ex-girlfriend were hanging out, by the way. Like,
Yeah, made chocolate chip cookies from scratch. They were delicious. We took those. It was a good spread. It was fun. It was good fun. The house was full. Getting to watch everybody was good. I've watched probably more Super Bowls in that house than any other one house.
So that's the
Um,
spot to congregate. Is that
so
house?
that's where we've congregated. I watched the 28-3 Super Bowl there. Um, watched this one there, a few others. It's yeah, it was fun. It was a good setup. Nothing too crazy, not too wild. We did the squares, which I can say because they're not, whatever. Um, did that. That was fun. Did you do squares? Do you do squares?
Nah, my work did,
Okay.
but I didn't win anything, and I didn't even know what fucking squares I had. So I don't know.
Oh, all right. Fair enough.
I was told I had a square, or a couple of them, and I didn't win, so I
I
don't
won
care.
3 of 4 quarters. I won the first, second, and third quarter. So that
Wow.
was fun.
So you
Yeah,
got given.
completely.
Do you do it where you pick the numbers, or are you given the numbers?
Well, if you got to pick the numbers, it would be like there's advantageous
Yeah.
numbers, right?
So you're
So
just given.
you put your name on the board and you fill the board, and then you randomly do the numbers on the X and Y axis
Yep.
after people have put their name on the board, so that you can't try to choose it. It's pure luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, in Vegas, my family there did it's like a prop bet sheet. So it's
That's awesome.
most of it's silly stuff like
Is that Dean's
commercials
idea?
and we've done it for a long time.
Okay.
So
That's his
probably
stepdad, by the way, for anyone
yeah.
out there listening.
Uh, and it's most of it's not football because it's kind of you try to engage like people that are just there for
Yeah.
hang
Yeah.
out. Won that, took some
You
cash
did?
down there. I did.
Dude, that's ridiculous. Fuck you. That's ridiculous. Did you see the guy who won? He bet 10 grand on Usher taking his shirt off, and then he won and got like a shitload of
It's
money.
awesome that a book was giving that action.
Yeah.
Like that was like a bet you could make. I saw on another unnamed book, you could bet on Nance or Romo to mention Area 51. You get odds on that because
Wild.
Vegas and Area 51 and all that. But
Sure.
not sure if that cashed or
I
not.
probably didn't.
I don't think it did. The odds were pretty deep, but
Well,
yeah. So I had two teams that I don't like played a game, and I made some cash. So what are you gonna do?
so how do you? You're a night owl. I know this. I have like a lot more to talk about if you want to. Like we have Patreon
Uh,
questions. We've got some. We definitely need to talk about at least the Cowboys' new defensive coordinator at minimum. But how much time do you have?
I've got time.
Okay. So we've talked about the Super Bowl for like an hour and a half. Great, but we're not just a fucking Super Bowl show. We talk about football. So
I was
um,
curious if you were gonna delve into other stuff or not. I'm
yeah,
glad
we
we are.
should. So like the Cowboys hired Mike Zimmer as defensive coordinator, which I personally really like. He's taken some time off coaching. I don't think he should be a head coach ever again, but he's a great defensive mind. It's been a shame he's out of football, and I like him back. And he's now got
It
a
actually
ton of.
wasn't out of football. So
What did he do?
I don't mean to big time you on your
Yeah,
own
no,
show.
go ahead. I don't
Um,
care.
he he after he left Minnesota, he was like an analyst at Jackson State, and then he went to Colorado with Dion.
Okay, it's an analyst job. Everyone does an analyst job for 2 years after they get fired. Like
He literally
he
did an
wasn't
analyst job
coaching actively
for
to
2
me.
years
Like,
after he got fired.
let's fight.
So
But I do you, as a Cowboy fan, do you like the Mike Zimmer hire?
generally, yes, I do.
Why the hesitation? What's wrong with you?
Because I don't know what it's going to look like. Because
Hmm.
I didn't like the Dan Quinn hire, and it worked out well. So like I what I've learned is that I actually have no idea what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, so let
but
me tell you to you.
yeah,
He
please.
he should never be head coach again because he's terrible with quarterbacks. He doesn't trust quarterbacks. He didn't
That
trust
I agree
Kirk
with. Yeah,
Cousins. He gets in his own way. And he's got all these opinions on how offense should work. And it's like the reality is you should coach defense and not be involved in the offense whatsoever. But he's a great defensive mind with now a really talented set of guys on defense to coach. And he's going to do great. He's like a home run, I think. Like, I think he's actually replacing Dan Quinn, a perfect hire. He's going to kill it. I'm really excited about it.
I generally feel good about it. I'm not. I feel like sometimes I almost go the other way with like I don't try to be the stereotypical Cowboy fan, so I like don't get excited about anything. Um, I generally feel good about it. I think there are a lot of worse hires that could have gotten made.
Hmm.
So out of 10, 7 with
Okay.
room to grow.
Two things we should talk about. And then there are 3 offensive coordinators we'll talk about, but we'll just do it on Patreon questions.
Yeah.
Michigan hired Wink Martindale as their defensive coordinator, which I don't have anything to say, but let's acknowledge that it happened. Good for him.
It
And
happened.
Seattle, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know Wink's like story front to back. I don't know how much
Yeah, I don't
Um,
have. I don't. If you have nothing, just I have nothing to say. I want to acknowledge that it happened. Like, hey, Wink
I have
Martindale, cool.
concerns with guys who've spent a lot of time in the NFL going to college because recruiting is a bear, and a lot of
Mm,
guys won't do it.
yeah,
Um, that's my concern.
but here's the side of that coin is when you are recruiting, you can say, look, I was in the NFL for this amount of time. Here's what I accomplished. I can help you get there. And so whether that works or not, I don't know. But I would think if I'm an 18-year-old kid who wants to play in the NFL and Wink Martindale's talking to me, he does know what he's talking about.
He does. I don't disagree. He's in his 60s and he hasn't seen a college campus in 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what gives me concern. But ultimately, I have no strong feelings.
Seattle, the Seahawks got their offensive coordinator. They hired Ryan Grubb. So Ryan Grubb, I would wonder if he sold his house or not. He was going to go with Kalen DeBoer to Alabama to be the Alabama offensive coordinator because he was offensive coordinator at Washington under Kalen DeBoer. He was
Yep.
planning to go to Alabama to be the offensive coordinator there. And he's reversed decision, and he's been hired as the offensive coordinator in Seattle under why am I blanking on the name? Mike McDonald, the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, the defensive coach who now has the offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb. And Ryan Grubb goes from the college team in Seattle near you to the NFL team in Seattle. And again, I go back to, did he sell his house or not? Because it's so inconvenient if he sold his house, moved to Alabama, and is moving immediately back to Seattle. Can you imagine how awful that would be?
I know. Yeah. Um, don't love it for Seattle.
Hmm.
I
Why?
I it's part of it's an experience thing. Like he was in UW for 2 years where he had Michael Penix, had a great system in place. DeBoer knows how to coach college offenses and how to recruit to play in that system. DeBoer's not a very good recruiter, but he did a good job in that realm. Uh, Before that, he was at Fresno State with DeBoer. I he's in a
I
spot where he's now earned what it will be, I think, at least a moderately difficult NFL job off the back of having like an incredibly easy, luxurious college job for 2 years, and that scares me for Seattle.
mm,
I would lean more toward that this will not go well than that it will. I don't think Seattle is set up in the way that UW was to succeed within the arena they play in. Um, I think that Grubb might be like kind of a little gimmicky, like a little one trick pony in the
I
way
got a
he calls
challenge for you.
plays. Like,
Can
okay,
I
go
challenge
for it.
you?
Yeah, please.
So, Coach Dan Casey's a friend of mine. He's a high school football coach.
Yeah,
And he always talks about how the best ideas trickle up. So, like the
yeah,
best, the most creative coaches are in high school football, and it's true. Like they do. Like
yeah,
there's a coach in high school football. He never punts ever. He just goes on a
yeah.
fourth
I've
down
seen
every
that
time.
guy. Yeah,
And so those ideas start in high school and go to college and then the NFL. We're seeing a guy go from like NAIA. He was coaching NAIA football, like Montana somewhere, to Fresno State, to Washington, to now Seattle with the Seahawks. He's the guy who's trickled up. He's got really good ideas. And what did he have in Washington? At University of Washington, he had great receivers. What did the Seattle Seahawks have? They've got DK Metcalf. They've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett. They've got really good weapons at receiver. And I see a lot of parallels with what Washington did really well last year and a similar group of guys in Seattle with the Seahawks, where I think the personnel is actually a kind of parallel there. So I wonder if the idea is the trickle up and then the fact that he knew how to take really great receivers and get the most out of them. Have you seen the clip of Jackson Smith at Jigba when he was asked about Shane Waldron getting hired by the Bears? And he was kind of like,
no,
he was like, he's like, he didn't answer. He like didn't want to say anything about Shane Waldron. He clearly didn't really love him.
yeah.
I would imagine if you watch Washington's offense and how well they use their receivers and put them in great positions to succeed, a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba is really excited today going,
I bet the receivers are
sweet.
gonna love him. It's just like, will
Correct.
it be like
Will it
my
work?
thing is
I don't
more
know.
like the success of it all. Yeah, I think that I watch a lot of UW. I think that a lot of their success was predicated on like abusing 19-year-old safeties, which is kind of the name of college football in a lot of ways. Like it
Yeah.
just kind of is.
Can we tell, like, I think we can say it. You live in the Seattle area, so you're like,
Yeah.
well, you're better plugged into like Seattle sports than like a lot of people like
And
who
again,
live in
like
like Boston would be.
12 slash like Big Ten now football, like so it's been pretty engrossed in it. I think that's the way that Grubb and DeBoer made their bones in UW, which I've no issue with that. Like that's totally fine. It's a completely viable and obviously successful way to like play the college game. But those aren't 19-year-old safeties anymore. This is the windows only get tighter. The pressure only gets heavier. Um, I think that I would be concerned as a Seahawks fan for the same reasons that I would be concerned if you're drafting Michael Penix to be your future. I think those things are intertwined. Personally, totally prepared to come back in here in 3 years and like say I was wrong, but that's how I think it goes.
You want to answer a couple Patreon questions?
Sure.
So if you want to support the show, you go to patreon.com/Zach Schambler, patreon.com/Zach Schambler. I do not guarantee to read your question on the show. I only guarantee I look at every single write-in with my eyeballs, and I pick the top couple to read on the show. Andrew writes in on Patreon. Andrew said, "Hey, Zach on Titan, longtime listener and patron. I think this is my third comment ever. Thanks for all the great work. I am a diehard Raiders fan, and I'm happy that the team went with Antonio Pierce as their head coach. However, I am skeptical about the offensive coordinator hiring of Luke Getsy. Given your stances about hiring offensive head coaches and how hard it can be to develop a young quarterback with a defensive head coach, I'm thinking about Aiden O'Connell or the rookie they end up drafting this year. Why do you like the Antonio Pierce hire so much? For me, it's because he's a player's coach and he gets the guys playing hard. The defense played better than I've ever seen them play towards the end of the last year. But do you think this player's first mentality can last? Or will it come crumbling down when some adversity hits? Thank you. So let's talk about Antonio Pierce. I also want to talk first about Luke Getsy for a second.
Yeah.
So the Raiders hired Luke Getsy as their offensive coordinator. He was with Chicago last year.
Yep.
If you know how great the Bears were last year, you know their offense was pitiful and frustrating. Not only did the Raiders hire Luke Getsy, but Shane Waldron got hired in Chicago. So Luke Getsy couldn't do anything with Justin Fields as his quarterback. Frustrating as hell to watch. Shane Waldron goes from Seattle to Chicago. Shane Waldron's now the offensive coordinator in Chicago. So he'll be either coaching Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. And he was not their first choice, by the way, in Chicago. They tried to hire, I'm blanking on the name, Cliff Kingsbury, but Cliff Kingsbury bailed out from being the Bears offensive coordinator. And then also, the Steelers hired Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. The reason why I say all that is, to me, Luke Getsy sucks. Arthur Smith is infuriating. I fucking hate the guy. And Shane Waldron is a very, I would say, average, if not below average, offensive coordinator. The
That's
reason I
fair.
say all that is to say there's such a limited amount of great offensive minds in football. So what ends up happening is guys like Luke Getsy get a job, Arthur Smith gets a job, Shane Waldron gets a job, and I don't think they're very good, but it makes you appreciate coaches like Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid. The great, brilliant offensive minds out there are just, there's not very
McVay.
many. And
Yeah.
the 10 or 15 guys that are great at doing that need to be appreciated. Like Mike McDaniels is a rare find. There's not a lot of great offensive minds out there. And unfortunately, then you get Shane Waldron in Chicago and fucking Luke Getsy with the Raiders organization. And it's not, I don't think, very good, but it's because there's not better out there. What say you?
Broadly, what's the expectation for any of them, right? Like, does Pittsburgh feel awesome about their hire? Does Chicago feel awesome about Shane Waldron? Like, does anybody feel awesome about any of these hires? The answer is probably no, right? It's not a resounding yes, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Like,
It's kind of horrifying, actually.
it's kind of horrifying, right? I like the Antonio Pierce thing. I like that they kept him on. I think the success. I'm a firm believer in the new coach bump.
Mm.
I think that happens. Like I think that it's invigorates the team a little bit. There's new blood.
Explain the new coach bump. I know what you're talking about, but for anyone who doesn't know,
this concept of a team playing with a little more fire, a little more invigorated, when a new coach is brought in. There's no that I know of like statistical backing to this. It could be complete like body language doctor nonsense, but like this stuff does happen. It happens in every sport, and I think that it's very likely that that's what we're seeing with the Raiders and Pierce. But even if that's the case, like I like seeing new blood coaching. I
Mm.
like this. I don't like the carousel. It's talked about all the time. The coaching carousel, right? It's the same. So we just did this conversation. This idea that they're shifting, and no one ever feels that great about it because the guy that you just hired, his last 3 stops have been similarly like not great. So I support that effectively a first time head coach who's an interim, that's fine, but a first time head coach like getting a shot. I agree wholeheartedly with you that I think teams should be trying to hire offensive coaches more than defensive coaches, and Pierce is certainly not that. Um, do I think he's Don Shula? Like, no, I don't. But I like the hire. I support it. I think that him being a player's coach, him being a younger guy, he was in the league 15 years ago. Like he's only in
Yeah.
his mid 40s. I think that connection matters to younger guys. Like he's kind of the same ilk and generation, kind of sorta of the players, and I think that matters too. Um,
What can I say?
Go ahead.
He's an internal hire. Like it's not like
Yes.
they didn't hire some defensive coordinator out of nowhere. They hired the guy who was in the building already, that the players loved, who had won games with them before.
Yep.
It's not I always rag on teams hiring defensive coordinators when they got a young quarterback, because I'm like, that's not the right way to do that. But that's not this. This is a guy who's done the job before that everyone knows and loves. And if you've here's the other thing. Who are the Raiders going to hire anyway? Like,
That's the point that I was going to make next. Like who are you missing out? Who are you saying no to hire Antonio Pierce? It's going to make you mad. You hired Antonio Pierce. Like,
and they give it 2 years, and if it fails, then you go find a better coach. But I
then
don't see any reason
how
to.
out are you? Well, the opportunity cost is nothing, right? Like
Correct.
it's literally zero. So what? Why not?
Yeah, I we're on the same page here. Here's one, and we already talked about this, but I think it's worth
Yeah.
rehashing. Matt writes in and says, "I'd just like to say that Brock Purdy did not cost the 49ers the game. Could he have played better? Yes, but he was not the problem on offense. Pass protection, he didn't have a turnover. Christian McCaffrey fumbled on the opening drive. McLeod muffed a punt. Moody missed a crucial PAT, and the offensive line had 4 or 5 false starts, putting them in long down and distance situations. That is all. My rant is over." We're on the same page. Brock Purdy didn't cost the 49ers the game. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
I don't
one
think there's
word
more to be
yes.
said, but I wanted to acknowledge Matt, who wrote in.
Shout out to Matt. You're right.
Yeah, good job, Matt. The feel is real writes in and says, admittedly frustrated 49ers fan here. What do you think about the criticism about Kyle Shanahan and being a choker? I believe it, but I fear if we were to let him go, he'd have an Andy Reid style moment and win a Super Bowl with the next team right away. I think that's spot
You
on.
guys were
Do you
reading the
feel that
same
way?
articles. Yeah.
Yeah, like he just hit on the thing we already talked about, but it's like
Yeah.
you nailed it. Um, we got 2 more left. Do you want to
Okay.
do the wacky fun one or the Super Bowl fun one first?
Let's do both. Do you have time for both?
Yeah, I have time. But which one do you want to start with? Super Bowl or wacky?
Give me the Super Bowl one. I feel like
Okay.
ending on wacky is appropriate.
Yeah. Funky Kong says, hey there, Green Bay Zackers. What are your top 5 Super Bowls of all time? Now, here's what I want to do. I don't want to count 5 I can't even think of 5 Super Bowls. But what we can do here is just talk about the ones that we remember vividly and had fun watching. Do you want to do that?
I'm going to pull up a list. I'm not afraid to like say that out loud because my memory's awful.
Yeah, go for it. Well, the one that comes to mind, like immediately, my favorite Super Bowl I've ever watched probably was the 28-3 comeback, Tom Brady beating the Atlanta Falcons. Like,
that was also going to be my answer. Yeah,
dude. I mean, can I say and Luke Glassett, my science teacher from high school. I was at a Super Bowl party here where I live right now. It was rowdy as fuck. It was super loud. Everyone was a Falcons fan. And I was infuriated because I hate when people talk about football and don't know what they're talking about. And I'm a Tom Brady fan. So I was like, in my head, I remember saying, like, Tom Brady's going to come back and win this game. And I went to I left at halftime, skipped the halftime show, drove to a different Super Bowl party, sat on the couch, crossed my arms and said, Tom Brady's going to come back and win this game. And then he did. And it was fucking awesome. And I had so much fun watching it. And that's the one that, like, I will always remember. And then one that stands out that I didn't like, actually, was when Seattle threw that interception on the fucking 1-yard line. I hated that. I remember, like, I fell asleep during the game. It was a time where I was like really depressed and kind of over football. And I remember this crazy throw to, I forget the guy's name right now. I played at UW. I think Javon Curse or something. There's this crazy catch on like the 2-yard line, and it sets up Russell Wilson just throwing the game away in the most hilarious fucked up way ever. Those are the ones that come to mind that are really memorable. But
Jermaine Curse, yeah. Uh, so I was actually just talking about the Jermaine Curse catch with my dad, actually, because we were talking
it
about.
was insane.
It was insane, and no one remembers it because we were talking about um, Lynn Swan's catch in Super Bowl like 10,
Mm-hmm.
way back. The leaping. This is how young I am. I said all of your older fans are getting so mad right now. He makes a crazy catch in Super Bowl like 10, I think it was, against Dallas. And it was like in the middle of the game. It wasn't late the way that Jermaine Curse's was, but it looks like Jermaine Curse's catch where it's like a jump ball kind of rattles around. Lynn Swan comes down with it and kind of bobble and ends up making the grab. And it's like, wow, everybody remembers that catch if you're like an older fan because it's a pivotal play. It's a crazy grab. And it's like, yeah, everybody would probably remember Jermaine Curse's too if Marshawn Lynch like got the carry, right? I mean, like
Dude, it would be like the best catch of all time. It'd be like remembered as like the catch in
it would
Super
be
Bowl history.
remembered like the David Tyree catch. It would be remembered
Yes.
like Edelman's catch, even Julio Jones's catch in that same game where they lose. Like they would
Yeah.
be remembered. It would be in the annals of history in that way, and it's
Anals.
completely forgotten about. It's a real word, I promise. That would
I
be
know.
it's
I think it's hilarious. I'm just immature.
you're one N away from it being a different thing. Um, yeah, no,
One letter, a D. Sorry.
yeah.
I'm terrible. What are the Super Bowls
um,
that stand out to you that you loved that like you enjoyed watching?
the Eagles Pats,
Nick Foles.
the Nick Foles game, the Philly,
Mm-hmm.
that is a great game. I mean, again, Cowboys fan. Like, I'm certainly not rooting for Philly there, and I don't love how it ended. But the game was great.
Yeah.
Um, another NFC East team beating the Patriots. The first Pats Giants game. Like, that's
Oh,
not
dude,
not. A, go ahead.
the one where the Patriots were 18-0 going in is
That's that one.
actually I want to
Yeah.
I want to amend my answer. I was so heartbroken that Tom Brady lost that game, but I will say I loved every second of that fucking game. It was so good to
And it
watch.
ends 17-14.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't like a barn burner.
it was
It has
tense.
obvious it
It was an
has the
action
David
thriller
Tyree
movie.
catch, obviously, which he came and went like a candle in the wind, after that. Um but has again like one of the ultimate moments in a Super Bowl. Um yeah, Rams Bengals was fun. It's recent, so there's
Mm-hmm.
some stuff there. It ended dramatically. I was kind of like leaning Bengals. I had like not a meltdown, but I had like an existential crisis after that game because it was like the Lakers had like just won the NBA title not that long prior, and like the Dodgers I think had also won. And it was like, why does LA get everything? And it was just like I was like so bummed out. I was like, I don't even like I like the Rams. Like I don't dislike the Rams at all. I love Matt Stafford. I love his story. Um, but like, why does LA get everything? And I was just like, it was upsetting. But the game was fun.
Both storylines were great too. Like
They
Burrow or
were
Stafford, like both are fun.
exactly, yeah, 100%. No, uh, we can all agree that Seahawks Broncos was terrible.
I
No,
hate you. I was gonna say it. Like that's the worst Super Bowl I can remember in a long time. What was it, like 48-12 or something?
43-8. Another contender for worst Super Bowl. If you're a casual, I don't even say that like pejoratively. It was Pats Rams. Like that game ends
Mm.
13-3. There's one touchdown.
Yeah, it was a defensive battle. It was pretty ugly. Even a football guy, like I try to convince myself I liked it because it was tense, but
Yeah,
that was
but
not a
like,
great
was it
game.
tense? Like, I feel like it wasn't. I don't remember it being tense either.
Well, it just
Because to
meaning
me, it never
like,
felt like the Pats were going to lose the game.
mm,
To me, I don't know, but
yeah,
it's like the inevitability of Brady. Like the Rams didn't score any. I mean, I guess the Pats didn't either, but like the Rams didn't score until the third quarter. Their only score was a field goal. It felt like it was never in question. I don't know.
Well, that kind of game though, for me, like maybe because I'm a nervous Nelly anyway. Like
Yeah,
I just am always aware that like at any second the game could be totally changed by like one play. So I'm
yeah,
like I'm
that's
always
fair.
like, oh no, like what if he fumbles here? Like what if like what if a punt gets run back for a touchdown?
My thing is always a pick six.
Mm,
Like, because it's one play, because it's so much changes.
yeah.
I think that the 28-3 game was the first time a quarterback had ever thrown a pick six and won a Super Bowl.
Oh
Uh,
really?
I think that's true.
Huh.
Might not be. I'm 95% sure. So, but that feels like a turning point type thing.
Mm.
Which again in that game, I mean, it's 3-3. I think headed to the fourth quarter, right? So, uh, who knows? But yeah,
I got another Patreon question if you want. Last one,
yeah, please,
a
yeah.
fun one. So Matthews is unhinged, but I love it. The OG Matthew says, "Can you read that?" Well, he writes in like some. I'll text you what he writes. It's just not. This is terrible radio now, but I'll just text you what he wrote me, and I'm confused by it and don't
Is it
understand.
like Cam Newton font or?
It's exactly Cam Newton font, and it says apparently. I love, dude. I love. You're on the same page, man. I love you. He goes, "Can you read that? It's supposed to be Hazak spelled with special characters. LOL. I'm gonna call that Cam Newton font from now on, though."
Yeah,
Matthew says, "Here's my submission for unhinged question of the week. If you had to pick a disability slash handicap, what would you pick? Paralyzed, blind, deaf, lose a limb, etc." He says, I would pick being wheelchair bound with only my legs being paralyzed because I'd still have all my senses and be able to live a pretty normal life. I'd never have to walk anywhere ever again. I could use an electric scooter to get around, plus the front row parking spots. I think being blind would be really freaky and being deaf would also be really hard because I'm a musician. What would you pick and why? I think he's kind of spot on. Like, not using your legs would suck ass, but you could still play games, watch movies, audiobooks, have conversations, like do most of the normal everyday life you already do. What do you think?
I could probably be talked off of it, but I think my initial choice would be to be mute, actually, which is ironic considering what we're doing right now. But
The guy on the podcast would want to be mute, apparently.
I think I'm a better communicator in the written word uh,
When you
than
answer
I
your
am
phone, you
speaking.
fuck. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm saying,
I've,
I'm messing with you.
I think you've not answered my calls just as
Dude,
much as I've
I'm
not
the
answered yours.
worst. I'm
Yeah,
totally kidding.
I was like, you're not the one.
I came at you really hot too. I'm sorry.
I think it would. I think it would be that. I think I'm trying to think of like things that I care about that would be taken away by like other disabilities, and I think that the lowest cost to me would be being mute. It would not be
Mm.
fun, and I could be talked off of it, but I think that would be
I think
it.
I'd want to be deaf. Like, I think I could live not hearing. I wouldn't, like, none of these are good. Let's be very clear. Like, I don't want any of this. But I want my eyesight because I want to be able to drive.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if they let you drive when you're deaf, but I could probably swing it. No one's going to ask. You don't look at a deaf guy and know he's deaf. Like, I
takes getting pulled over
think,
one time, and the jig is up.
yeah, but like it. But
Yeah,
like
and I
it,
feel you.
but like I could still go hiking. I could do like all the physical stuff I like doing. I need to move. Like I need to go for walks. Like
Yeah,
I don't. I hear what he's saying about the paralyzed thing, but I personally need to walk around and do stuff. Like I need to be physically active. If I couldn't hear anything, but I could still read subtitles and read books and still watch movies because you can read, you can play video games. Like you can do basically everything you already do. You just can't hear anything. Music would suck to lose. Like I would be desperately sad about that.
the first thought, not to get too heavy, the first thought I go to is not being able to hear my daughter.
Oh,
That's the one I like. That's where I'm like, no,
eh.
deaf is not an option. Like, I would, in that context, I'd rather go blind than go deaf. Like,
But you never see your daughter.
yeah, I know, but like, it's more, I think hearing her is more intimate. Like, right, there's more connection hearing her. I
Mm-hmm.
think. Maybe I'm wrong. I
Talking.
hope that I don't have to deal with any of it.
Yeah.
But, like, that's my first, like, because talking, like, you can sign.
Mm.
I can still hear people I care about. I can still see people I care about.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest that might not be true. One of the bigger losses would be like a primary way that I stay connected with my friends that I no longer live near is through video games, through
Yeah.
like chatting on games and stuff. So that you lose in the way that we know it now.
Yeah.
Maybe there's ways around it. I'm sure there are, but like that would be a substantial loss.
No
But
Discord.
exactly right. But if that's the
Mm.
most substantial loss, I think I'm okay with that.
See, like I got the paralyzed thing with kids involved, right? You go back to like
Yeah,
not being able to like run around with your kids, not being able to
exactly.
like play catch
Yeah,
with them or go hiking with them. Like that sucks too, man. Like I don't know.
yeah.
It's all bad. They're all bad.
Remember when this was a fun question?
It was, and you know, it's your fault. You turned
I
it dark.
ruined it.
You
I
brought up
did ruin it.
kids.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely ruined it. But it's like that's my honest answer. So like, I don't know.
No, dude, I talk about you a lot. I don't know if you know this. Like,
It's so
um,
funny. That's such a. I wish you'd have started the show with that. That'd have been so funny if you're like hit record live. I talk about you a lot. Like that'd been funny.
well, like this. So we talked about Travis and Jason a lot, right? And
Yeah,
on the other podcast.
yeah,
Um, and you're my Jason, dude. Like I look up
yeah.
and I'm the fuckboy Travis, trying not to be. And I
Just
look
yelling
at
at Andy Reid,
no, hopefully not. But like
just screaming at your boss.
I just so like you things need to be said out loud. I've learned like because sometimes you never get the chance to say it again. I've already told you this, but I'm gonna say it again here. Like
Yeah,
you're such a role model to me. You have an awesome relationship. You've got a young daughter. You're such a good dad, and also like you take your daughter everywhere. That fucking kid, Shar, has been on a plane like more than I have in my life for sure. Like the kid goes
60 or
everywhere,
70 times at this
dude.
point.
You
Yeah,
just you just kept living your life the same way you did before, but now you bring your kid with you, and
yeah.
you're an awesome dad. Like I just love you, man, and I look up to you so much. And it's cool to do this, like the podcast with you and have you on, but also like on dates with the I'm not gonna say
Don't,
her name, the lawyer I'm
don't.
dating,
Yeah,
right?
don't. Yeah.
We talk about I talk about you and like it comes up a lot. I'm like, dude, my friend Austin, I look up to him so much, and like I hope you know that. Like, and the fact that you turn a fun question dark with your daughter is both sad but also honest and real. And that you know who would do that? Fucking Jason Kelce.
I love the idea that this is like super meta, not fun, not good radio, but I think the idea, hopefully, if it works out, is that I'm going to get to meet her in a couple of weeks, um, and I relish the opportunity um, to correct her because you're so genuine and sweet that you've built me up to be the kind of person that I certainly am not. And I look forward to showing her that I actually am, like, at my roots, kind of a scumbag.
Destroying the image that I've
Like,
created of you.
yeah, like that sounds like that's exciting. I like the idea of doing that.
I
Not even
oversold
like
Austin.
not even like in a disingenuous way. Like, so he was different. Like that seems like that
That's
seems
just
like a
you though.
fun
You're a
thing to
hater.
do.
You even hate yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It's Hollywood, baby. You win some, you lose some.
Well, man, I love you. Thanks for coming on. It was really fun to talk about.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Dude, yeah.
Thanks for letting us do this. If there's anything, I'd love to come back on. We've done this a few times. It's always a good time getting to do the sports stuff. We don't do a lot of sports on our other show. We delve into it sometimes, but it's not like a tentpole topic like obviously this show is. So getting to do this is fun. And if you want to talk hockey, let's get
First
after
of
it.
all, you're never invited back. You're never coming on the show again. You did terrible.
Jesus
You weren't. No one
Christ.
liked this. No, what's gonna
I'm
suck is
done.
people are gonna immediately look for the other podcast, and it's not even out yet. They can't. They
It's not
literally
even out
can't
yet.
listen to it for probably another week, probably at best.
Yeah.
So, but as soon as it's out, what's gonna be good is you've been introduced now to more people that
Yeah.
are gonna know about you and know about that thing. So when it comes out, they'll be like, I can't wait to hear from Austin.
I'm gonna read
It
every
really,
comment of people just destroying me for a name I said wrong or something.
Oh,
Can't wait.
I think what's going to happen is people are going to say, dude, I think Austin was more prepared than Zach. I think actually people are going to really like what you had to say. I
Dude,
think
people
killed
got
it.
after me in the hockey ones we did.
That's
In
people.
some of the comments. And then I was right. So you know what? If you're listening right now and you made the comment, I don't know who you are. I can't remember any of your names. I was right. You weren't. So stop. That's scene. I don't know. See?
End scene. Well, I love you, man. Have a great day. We'll talk
Love
soon.
you, man. Yeah.
I'll see you in I think 2 weeks, roughly.
Couple weeks.
So yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, man. Love you. Bye.
See you guys.